How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 36 of the ControllerCast. I am joined, as always, by Jonathan, Sir Bradley, the Wood himself, the librarian
Lord,
himself,
Lord Jonathan Bradley Wood, that is.
and President Andrew Eisenhausen. How are you guys doing? Andrew, how about you start us off with what you've been up to this week?
Yeah, so this week, the weather has been absolute shite in Omaha. It's just extremely cold, fucking snowing. So with the snow and the ice, me and Jordan binged all of Euphoria season 1 in one fucking day. And then
Yes, sir.
and then we're caught up, so we're ready for the new episode to drop tonight. So it is a very interesting show, I must say. I've never watched it before, and I didn't know fucking anything about it except that Zendaya was in it.
Very adult show.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
Not for me. I am not adult.
You didn't.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, you don't even like Brussels sprouts. You fucking
Brussels
jackal.
sprouts are disgusting.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I don't
Speaking
know
of that,
if
I mean,
I've had 'em.
with this nice snowy weekend, me and Jordan have been going out to eat basically all weekend. So we had some there's this place called Everett's, which is on 90th and Maple, and it is a very good place. If you're in Omaha, I'd highly recommend trying Everett sometime. They have some fire ass sandwiches, and their Brussels sprouts are fucking killer. Shut up.
Oh my god, I'm making farting noises.
Sorry, if anybody didn't know, John has the fucking taste palate of a 6-year-old.
No.
He only eats ground beef tacos.
What? Get out of here. Dude, I like carnitas. I like steak or carne asada. I like all of it. I just don't like Brussels sprouts. And
You
that's
have
definitely not.
Everest is
not
very good. And then we got Villaggio when it was snowing, and that was fire as always. And then we got
Bellagio mid.
we went to fucking Spaghetti Works last night, and it was like dead as fuck, and it was actually pretty good. We actually we went to
What's their beer cheese sauce? That shit's fire.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I always get the meat sauce though. I like the meat sauce. I like having that hot steamy meat on my noodle. So we we went you know how they have like the salad bar there? We went to get the salad bar while they were like bringing our drinks out, and like we thought the table was like connected to the wall, like you know how like a booth usually is like connected. So like Jordan was like getting in and like had to like put her arm down on the table to like sit down, and the whole fucking table like flipped, and all of our drinks went like flying everywhere. It's fucking insane.
What the shit?
like the table was like this, and then like we like put our weight down on here to like sit down, and the fucking drinks like went down, and then they came back up and like jumped up in the fucking air, like the fucking Mii's when you like throw a bowling ball backwards in Wii Sports. The drinks like went up
shit.
It was fucking wild. But yeah, I mean, we were dog sitting my parents' dogs on Friday night, so that was interesting. But yeah, been playing through Uncharted. This is like the Uncharted cast this week. Me and John have been fucking grinding on Uncharted, all the Uncharted story modes in order. Just
Absolutely.
I don't know why John decided to play him, but I decided to play him because I want to be done with all 3 of them and then play the remastered 4 when it comes out. So
Casey wanted us to play through them because she wants to see the movie. And I was like, I don't expect the movie to be anything wild, but we should definitely play
so
through
as is canon on the ControllerCast, are you gonna fucking play GTA 5 story mode after this?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's been my week. Food and grinding on Uncharted, playing those old bangers again. What about you, Johnny?
Well, that's actually been pretty similar to my week, besides the fact that I have COVID. God damn it. I don't know who the hell said that. I'm pretty sure we have this new fucking strain or whatever. I would be surprised.
Omicron.
Yeah.
Autocron. Autobots roll out.
Yeah. Fucking Optimus Prime. Omicron. I just think of Optimus Prime when I hear it, but I don't know who said it's mild because we're both vaccinated and it's been terrible. This is my 7th day of symptoms now. It's come with headaches every day. Pretty much every morning I wake up feeling like I had an entire bottle of liquor the night before. So if you like the hangover feeling every day, go out and get yourself some Omicron. But I mean, I feel like I'm starting to get better now. I'm still really stuffy and I can't hear anything. Like my ears are super clogged. It's really just like a terrible, terrible cold with fever, headaches, and body aches like you wouldn't fucking believe. Like seriously, I had the first day that I really felt really bad symptoms was like Monday night. So right after our last episode when I said that I feel like I might have it. But like my left side hurt so bad. Like imagine you sit on a couch and binge an entire Netflix series, but you're sitting like sideways the entire time and you stand up and you're like, oh, my side. Oh, it was like that, but like for the entire day. Like I could not sit. I couldn't even lay down and get comfortable. It was absolutely terrible. So with how much it's going around, I would highly recommend probably getting vaccinated if you haven't, because I can't imagine what it's like without
Yeah, and if you're already vaccinated, get boosted. Get fucking boosted.
And Casey and I have been trying to get boosted, but we kept getting fucking exposed.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Jordan. I'm like, you guys just had like there was like a fucking perfect storm of like shitty timing and events and everything. Because I remember you guys had like 3 different appointments scheduled, and everyone got canceled because you kept getting exposed.
Yeah, it's horseshit, but
and always by jackals.
Yeah, well, this time it seems like, funny enough, the time we got it, we finally got it. It seems to have happened by just simply going to fucking Target and shopping. Like that had to have been where we got it, because the timing of everything. Yeah, I mean, like it was a Target trip on last Wednesday night or two Wednesdays ago. But yeah, it's been shitty. I would highly recommend getting vaccinated if you haven't, because holy shit. Well, first off, to help your fellow man. And second off, because this shit is terrible, even with the vaccine that's supposed to make it a lot easier. But because of that, we've been chilling at home for the most part. We have been playing Uncharted. We got through the first and the second game. Casey's enjoying those a lot. I'm surprised, like even with how much like actual gameplay there is to them, she's been really excited to like just watch me play. She helps a lot with the puzzles though, because I'm not that good at puzzles and shit when it comes to Uncharted.
There's always one puzzle in each game that completely stumps me, like first time through for like half an hour.
Oh my gosh, same. But Casey's so good at that shit. She gets through those no problem, and she doesn't even like look at the booklet. She's just like, oh yeah, I've got it. It's like it's obvious.
And number 2, it was the one near the end of the game where you have to like, it's like that circular room with like the cubes. They have to like put the cubes on like those like, do you know what I'm talking about? And they have to like match the symbols on the walls. Like when I was like 10 years old playing that, I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing here?
There's so many puzzles on Uncharted that I was like, the first time I played through, I was like, fuck this, dude. Like, can I just like auto complete this puzzle and just get on with the fucking game?
And it wasn't as easy to like Google stuff, I feel like back then. Like you had to watch a YouTube video if you wanted a tutorial.
But yeah, my first playthrough was in like 2010. So like I didn't even have like a fucking, I think I had like an iPod Touch. I was like watching YouTube videos off to figure the shit out.
Yeah.
I remember there's also in Uncharted 3, that's spoiling it, there's like this puzzle where you have to like match up shadows to like create an image. But like to do that, there's like 100 slots in this like circular room. And I was like, which fucking slot could it be? It was so confusing.
Oh, that sounds terrible. Luckily, I have Casey for those puzzles though, but she's so good at it and she's loved watching them. But besides COVID and Uncharted, we watched through Infinity War yesterday while we built our Infinity Gauntlet Lego set, which was really fun. That's actually the first time that Casey's built a Lego set. So we did that together and started off strong with a 600-piece set. It took us about 3.5 hours. So we got through Infinity War, and then it took us like an extra hour. But Infinity War is still probably, besides No Way Home, my favorite Marvel film, because oh my gosh, that thing is action packed and all the characters are like actually really good in it. And we watched Endgame recently too, and Endgame is like borderline bad compared to Infinity War. It's such a terrible compliment to it. Seriously, Ursula, you have to rewatch Endgame. It's so cringy. It's
I've
like
only seen Endgame once, and that was in theaters.
I've
Not
seen
because
it.
it was bad, but because it's like
It's bad. No,
it's just
not
2 hours of
bad.
build up.
Yeah, literally. Like, and even the final fight is not as good as the final fight in Infinity War, in my opinion. But yeah, Endgame kind of stinky. But Infinity War is amazing. And the fact that it's all IMAX, dude, Endgame's not even all IMAX. Like, it kept going back and forth. So yeah, it was a lot. It was really cool to watch. And then build the Infinity Gauntlet Lego style while we were doing it. And then funny enough, we were making pizza last night, homemade pizza, and we had ordered pizza for delivery, contactless delivery the night before, and we were feeling pizza again because we had the shit to make it. Whenever we don't feel like taking out the trash, we'll put our pizza boxes like in the oven until we decide to take out the trash, and then we'll take it out of the oven and take it to the trash. Yeah. Casey preheated the oven and it started smoking, and we were switching back and forth between cooking and building the Lego set because we wanted to get it done before dinner. Fucking she had preheated the oven. She started us off, and then she went to build Legos, and then I was putting the pizza together, and the fucking oven starts smoking, and we're like, what the hell's going on? I couldn't figure it out. And then I like open up the oven because I'm like, bing bong, I left the pizza box in the oven, like we usually do. And I open it up and smoke is billowing out, and I was like, holy shit, this thing's like on fire. So like I kept opening the oven slowly, and we had all the fans on, all the windows open, and it's actually on fire. There's a big hole in the middle of the box, and it's like sparked up, and like it's slowly like being eaten away by this like light flame around the circle that got burnt through. So we like put a cookie sheet under it and took it out, and then put it on the deck and covered it in snow. So that was a fun little escapade. But
That's not the first time you've had a flaming item in a kitchen.
I think it is. Wait, what are you referring to? The Parker thing?
Yeah.
Oh, the Spanish video?
Yeah.
Oh god. That was the day before my birthday too. That was crazy. But yeah.
What the fuck?
When it was his fault. It was Parker's dad's fault. But he was
God,
like, what took you guys so fucking long?
I don't know, maybe because you put a lid on the pot.
He like put vegetable or canola oil in a pot, a lot of it, and it was just like,
well, it would have been fine
boiling.
if he didn't put the lid on it before he went to bed.
Yeah, and like a lid that didn't have any ventilation to it either. It was just like a solid lid. But yeah. That's oh, good time.
I just remember seeing him fucking carrying this fucking burning pot and just fucking whoosh.
There were fireballs shooting out of the burning pot. It looks like some
fucking hammer tossing that shit off the fucking deck.
And I'm pretty sure it was like snowy too.
No, it wasn't. The grass caught on fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
shit.
Then the fire department had to come.
Holy shit. That was crazy. But yeah, that was pretty much my week. We built Legos, played Uncharted, and COVID.
Started fires.
And started fires in the kitchen. Almost started our apartment. Nah, it wasn't. It wasn't that big of a fire.
Nah.
But I was
Cut it
like,
off. Cut it off. Cut it off.
yeah, cut it off. Ursula, how you doing?
Okay. So yeah, I watched Euphoria season 2, episode 1 after our last episode. Very, very crazy fucking show.
It was probably the craziest like season opening episode I've ever seen of like any fucking show.
Yeah, it's a beautifully made show. That's one thing I'll say also. But
Like
also,
Shameless, but like in a high school. Have you guys seen Shameless?
I've seen a little bit of Shameless, and no, it's like very like artsy and like but it's like very graphic.
Isn't
Very adult.
isn't Drake like one of the producers? Or
Yeah, he's like
director or
the
some shit.
he's
Oh,
like
it's the
that,
grassy part too.
but it's like he's like
all grown up.
he he like executive produced it. But yeah, it's a really good show though. But sometimes it is like a little overly dramatic for high school stuff. That's like my main complaint with it.
I
But
know I always have to like remind myself that these characters are supposed to be fucking like 17. I'm like
holy shit, we're
Yeah, I don't
people
even know any like people in their like mid-20s that are doing shit like this.
Yeah, like were people doing heroin in high school and shit? I don't think so, but
yeah,
maybe.
maybe actually. No, I mean I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but
Oh,
okay.
we're an explicit cast, Ursula.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, anyways, moving on. It's a good show. If you get on the Euphoria hype, if you know you have HBO Max. But besides that, I start actually also watching a show I didn't think I'd ever fucking watch, Cobra Kai. It's actually pretty great if you acknowledge, like, I mean, you don't even like, it's not even like a guilty pleasure show. It's a great show, but it's also like very like goofy and like kind of like taking the spirit of like the 80s essentially and like carrying it into like a modern show. It's like a very like corny and cheesy show, but it's really good. John, I actually feel like the reason I was asking you was because I for some reason feel like you and Casey would really like this show. I think you guys should like maybe give it a shot. It's like each episode is like 25 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I think you guys would get hooked onto it. Funny enough, me and Tana did, and we didn't have really any expectations for it. And we haven't even seen the Karate Kid like movies that it's like a sequel to.
Yeah, we might check it out then.
Yeah.
I know Casey likes the Karate Kid a lot.
Oh yeah, then she'll probably fucking love this show.
Oh shit.
But no, it's actually like it's like strangely like just kind of simple and goofy, but also like can be very like deep at times. But that's been taking up a lot of my week. Just watching that, it's pretty good. Also restarted God of War because we'll be doing an episode on that in the coming weeks.
Atreus.
Yes. So I started that. Looks beautiful on PS5. Honestly, it looks way better than it did on PS4. PS4 version genuinely looked kind of blurry at times, and it was 30 FPS. This looks gorgeous, and I cannot wait to see what Ragnarok looks like later this year. But I'm only like an hour or so into it. I've only had time to play it a little bit yesterday, and but yeah, God of War is going good. And then also we got back into Fortnite of all games.
I forgot to talk about the Fortnite renaissance.
I didn't even talk about Fart Night.
Yeah, Fortnite's had a bit of a resurgence in general. I feel like a lot of people have been coming back to it that I know. But also, we have started playing it as a trio. We've had some people swapping in and out as the fourths, but we've been playing it, gotten a few dubs.
Yeah, we still have yet to have a fourth person whose name doesn't start with a fucking J. It's just Jake and Jared.
Oh yeah, holy shit.
But honestly, not as sweaty as when I left it. Like when I stopped playing the game a few years ago, it's been filled with bot lobbies, and I love it for that. But But
Yeah, shout out bots, baby.
yeah, shout out to the bots that will literally stare at you for 5 seconds while you're reviving someone, and then they will shoot one bullet at you, and then you can just shoot them and kill them. It's pretty great.
Get that elim count up.
Yeah, for real. But
We actually had a victory royale, like the first quad game we did.
yeah, and we had a few second place games.
Yeah.
And just go. Remember, everyone always drop at Greasy Grove.
Greasy Grove for life.
But besides that, my week has also been taken up by listening ferociously to our main topic, and that main topic is, as Andrew is alluding to, the radio station, the new album by Abel Tesfaye, also known as the Weeknd, Super Bowl 2021 performer, Abel Tesfaye, The Weeknd. New album by The Weeknd, Dawn FM, is the main topic. So let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, so today we will be discussing worldwide superstar, international phenomenon, Abel Tesfaye, The Weeknd's 5th studio album, Dawn FM, kind of a sequel of some sorts. Very much advertised as like a sequel to his 4th studio album, the absolutely massive After Hours. So we did do a review on After Hours, if you guys remember. It was one of our first episodes, actually. And just as a recap for our scores on that album, John gave it an 8.5.
I would like to amend that score.
Whoa, John John gave it an 8.5. And then me and the Alpha Chad Andrew gave it 9.5s. And that put our score for After Hours at an overall of 9.2. So we generally hold After Hours in pretty high regards. So let's start off kind of talking about our expectations coming into this album. What were we all expecting kind of after Hours? Yeah, I guess I'll go. I'll start off. I was pretty much, when he was talking about, the dawn is coming, kind of like some Dark Knight shit, like it's the darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
I pretty much kind of what I was expecting, probably like something similar stylistically to After Hours, but maybe a little more upbeat. That was my expectations, not necessarily my desires for the album, but my expectations coming into the album was that. What about you, John?
Funny enough, I actually did kind of expect it to be like a sequel to After Hours. Just with how the success of After Hours went and the numbers that it pulled and how soon after that it came out. I figured it'd be somewhat of a sequel because, I mean, before After Hours, it was pretty much Starboy, which was like a 4-year gap almost. Like we got My Dear Melancholy, but it was almost a 4-year gap between actual studio LPs. But yeah, I kind of expected a sequel to After Hours. And I thought that I actually expected there to be more hard-hitting singles than there were. Also considering I mean, I thought he was going to try and more so recreate the magic of After Hours, but I am glad that he didn't exactly do that, even though maybe stylistically it's similar. But Andrew, what were your expectations coming into the dawn, into the light?
I figured, I didn't think it would be a sequel. I guess I didn't even really like connect the names. And I mean, we didn't even know the name until like 3 days before the thing dropped, for Christ's sakes. But like, I mean, I didn't think it would be a sequel to After Hours. Like, I mean, now he says it's part of a new trilogy. It's like the second piece, with After Hours being the first. So I didn't expect it to be like part of that. I thought it'd just be like its own standalone thing. But I mean, shit, I'm pretty glad it is part of a trilogy now after listening to it. And also, there's like not really any time to like get any real expectations based on what the album was called or anything, because like I mean the turnaround time on him announcing it would come out and like it coming out was fucking light speed
I
compared
feel
to
like he's been calling it the Dawn for like a year now, though.
Well,
Like,
well, I
he's
know, but
saying
I
that
didn't
the Dawn is coming, but we didn't know.
know that was the album title.
Yeah.
oh,
I think you might have. It seems like Ursula, you thought so.
I thought, well, I wasn't sure until he like announced his tour, and his tour was called After Hours Till Dawn. So I was like, okay,
I didn't even think
album
of that.
probably. I was like, the album is probably gonna be called like something related to the Dawn, but
Dude, I am pissed that Andrew and I don't have tickets to see him anymore.
Nobody
we
does.
literally had
yeah, nobody
oh,
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, but like I'm pissed that he canceled that tour because we would have been seeing him like what next month.
You weren't even gonna go, you jackal.
I probably would go, yeah, but I mean, well, that was I was saying that though at the beginning of Casey's pregnancy when it was a lot worse, and
And then
That's
Dawn
fair.
FM came out, and
then
I
Dawn
went,
FM came out, yeah, exactly, and we both really like it.
so I guess like going kind of into the rollout from there, which I think the album cover is a part of that, but around New Year's he kind of was starting to tease a little bit, like, oh, like we should just drop it, like fuck the rollout, like music heals or some shit.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
put that out on New Year's.
Yeah, he put that out on New Year's, and for the album came out on like what, January 7th. So essentially a week
Later.
But what do you guys think of the rollout? Because I mean, I thought it was not a little refreshing to kind of just get thrown right into it, like, oh hey shit, we're gonna get a Weeknd album in like a week. I thought that was a nice change up from After Hours, which had this huge epic drawn out rollout, which I think probably did After Hours like more favors than maybe Dawn FM's rollout did for it, but we'll get into that later. But then also he put out a bunch of trailers. The trailers, I love that first one where it's like pretty much the intro of one of the songs, Every Angel's Terrifying. That's like an amazing album trailer. Like it's so epic and cinematic, and that intro is used very well in that trailer.
Visually stunning.
And then also, but I will say the only part that was questionable about the rollout was the album cover. I think after listening to the album cover, like, I mean, I get it, it makes sense, but I feel like he could have done something a lot more exciting for something as conceptual as this. I feel like he could have taken it just in a lot more interesting directions, or done something even more interesting, like just on a color level, like like I think After Hours is a fantastic cover. I also think Starboy is an amazing cover.
Yeah,
And Starboy, like
the best cover, I think.
And Starboy, like I feel like communicates a lot well just with the color palette of that cover.
Starboy is an iconic album. It's in Spider-Man, the video game.
Yeah. But
which one?
Or
it's in the movie. It's in
Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh shit. Starboy?
Yeah. Well, it's like a knockoff cover.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the album cover I think is a little underwhelming. But the one thing I would say it carries over into the sound of the album is like it sounds very isolating. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But what are your guys' thoughts on the like kind of 1 week rollout, the trailers and the album cover?
The trailers were so badass, dude. They got me really hyped, especially the one that had Every Angel is Terrifying, or the intro to it. It was just like the Weeknd at his best sonically, just like hitting those vocals on all cylinders. But I loved the fact that it was a short rollout because I hate having to wait months for an album, especially from like my favorite artist. It's like I'm cool with a long rollout, I guess, if he's releasing singles, but like I guess that wouldn't have really done this album justice, I feel like, to release a bunch of singles before it came out. And I'm glad that he was like, it's a tough time for everyone, screw it, I'm gonna give you guys a Weeknd album. And it was great to see it. I love the music videos. Like I said, the trailers were really cool. And we didn't really talk about it, but like the night it dropped, I loved his like concert he had where he was the old man from the album cover and he was dancing and shit. He was like DJing his own album. Even though it was obviously, and it was funny when he did that. I thought that was like almost like a remixed version of the album, but it was actually every song. And when it like seamlessly went from song to song, I was like, oh, there's no way like this is actually how the album sounds. This is like a concert version set list of it. But no, that's like that was legit how it sounded. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I think the album cover is like it's okay. It's not the best. I have a picture actually pulled up right now for my background on Zoom that I think would have probably been a better album cover, but I think it definitely plays to the theme of the album. Uh, and I think as music videos and stuff come out too, it'll make more sense. But maybe there'll be a deluxe version with a different album cover like he did with After Hours. But I like it. I thought it was interesting. It was different. Definitely more different than anything else he's put out for an album cover. Except Starboy has the best one. But I like the rollout. I thought it was short, concise, and if you're a Weeknd fan, you weren't gonna miss it. So I don't know how like the numbers of this didn't do as well because I figure if anything, a short rollout would be like everyone would just hop on it quickly. But I don't know. Maybe it's taken people a little bit more time to notice it or something. I don't know. Or because I know that I have had this album on repeat more than I did After Hours. But you're like, well, take it away.
Without going into the sale, I'll just say this, like going into that, like I also think just from what we saw, I don't think that reception on this album was as universally positive as After Hours. But
not initially. I feel like it's grown on some people, at least from what I've seen on Twitter. It seems like people are like turning around with it. And I mean, anyone that says it's mid has been ratioed to shit. So
what about you, Andrew?
I mean, I kind of torn on the rollout. Like I like that it was like a really quick turnaround, but also like sometimes I like having a longer lead time. So it's like something to like look forward to, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm always like, shadow drops are always welcome, but I mean, for like something as big as a Weeknd album, I kind of wish there was some time to build some hype. And I think probably like looking at the numbers, he probably wishes there was a little more time to build hype on it. I mean, I don't know if that would have made it that much of a difference, but I mean, and like the album cover, I think is like fine, but the Weeknd has this thing where he makes his best album covers like not the main one. Like the After Hours remixes, the one with the lightning on it, that's like the most badass album cover he's ever made, and it's on like this shitty remix album, which is stupid as hell.
You all agree that My Dear Melancholy is the worst one?
I think
Beauty Behind the Madness is probably the worst album cover.
I think Kisslands is like strangely generic for like how thematic that album is. Also,
I actually like Beauty Behind the Madness because it's like a collage, and the songs are like a collage of different sounds. I feel like it makes sense. Like all of his album covers actually like play into what, weirdly enough, what like the vibe of the album is. I think.
Yes.
You guys not think so? Well, maybe
don't,
not Kissland.
I didn't really think of it that deep.
I'm thinking of it that deep.
But
yeah, I felt like an old man after listening to this album.
I'm trying to think like I've listened to this album like a dozen times all the way through now. And I feel like that's still less than I listened to After Hours all the way through in the first week, because like, I mean, that was like when lockdown started, like it came out a week after everything got canceled. So like I literally had that shit on repeat. Like what is his first post-pandemic album gonna sound like? Because we've had 2 straight pandemic albums now. So I mean, what's going on? Like, do we have to get another fucking variant to like come out so we can release the third part? Like, what's going on here, buddy?
It is weird. The timing of it.
I feel like this one though, I know when I listen to After Hours, I had more of like I just put it on shuffle, but this album I like go out of my way to like make sure shuffle's turned off just because of how it's like structured. So I feel like maybe it's different in that way that I'm like listening to it in order. I mean, even like the songs I put on my playlist, I put them like in like all of the songs from Dawn FM are in order on like the start of my playlist because like I'll go into it later, but just the like you have to listen to this album in order, which is kind of nice, but like also if you're just trying to hear a few songs, it kind of I mean they're fine by themselves, but it just makes it better listening to it in order on the album.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean,
Yeah,
shit.
I guess probably worth going. Okay, so yeah, let's get into like our just general initial thoughts on the album. So I'll start off, and I've seen like a tweet that says this is kind of like a reductionist way to like go about the conversation, but I don't know if I agree with this because it is a sequel to After Hours, so you're going to directly compare them to some extent. Um, so like people like someone I saw a tweet saying like, oh, it's like you shouldn't compare the two albums or something like that, but it's like he's setting it up to be a trilogy, like it's a series now, you know. So uh, I'll just start off by saying this: it's not as good as After Hours. It's a bit of a come down, in my opinion. From
Wrong.
well, but so let me hold on, let me elaborate. So I think it is a bit of a come down from After Hours. I thought After Hours, as I mentioned in our review, was kind of really like this all-encompassing album for the Weeknd. I felt like everything that the Weeknd had done with his career was leading up to that album. That album felt like this grandiose statement as like the Weeknd as an artist, you know, like you had everything like you know, yeah, he did the 80s sound and he did stuff like that, but he still made it sound like the Weeknd. Uh, you know, like that's what I really loved about that album. He took that sound and he made it his own. Um, and on this album, I'm so conflicted with this album because it's a you know, it's a fantastically made album. Like it's not just like he's not phoning it in. He's really digging deep into this synth wave, synth pop, disco pop sound. But I feel like it's you know the trade off to that is you know we're getting this really deep take on this one specific sound, but I feel like we're losing a lot of what makes the Weeknd on this album. I feel like you know the songs like In Your Eyes or like I Feel It Coming, Can't Feel My Face, like those were a few stand like specific moments on previous albums, but he's really taken the sounds of those kinds of songs and really spread it out across an entire project. And I don't know, like I said, it's kind of conflicting because he does it really, really well, but I think he lost some of what made After Hours great, which was really, you know, adding his specific flair and his specific style to this kind of sound. Which that's where I feel like it regresses from After Hours, where um, I don't know, it feels like sometimes it's just trying to be like this is like a modern take on Michael Jackson as opposed to this is the next step for the Weeknd. We'll get more into it, but that's kind of what I feel like. It takes one specific sound and runs with it very well, but it loses a lot of what the Weeknd's discography has, the strengths of the Weeknd's discography outside of that specific sound. So that's my kind of like general thoughts. But what about you, Andrew?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think like comparing it, like listening to After Hours and Starboy compared to this, I think you're right. Like it sticks to one sound, which it does extremely well, but I feel like it's just kind of a departure from his prior albums where there's like specific songs that have specific sounds. You could like kind of group them in like different like sonic, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like you could take like groups of songs and like they have all very distinct sounds that they share with those
Mhm.
specific songs. Um but I think the storytelling piece and the production value of this album is probably like the best he's ever had. Like
Mhm.
listening to this album with like surround sound or in a car or something is like it's like auditory gold. Like it's everything is produced so well. And I think the guy that produced most of the songs did the Uncut Gem score.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
that's one joke. Like this whole album is basically Uncut Gems colonoscopy music.
yeah, I mean after
Uh,
seeing that, like I definitely can
I
like
haven't seen it, but
I can I can definitely make some comparisons to like how Uncut Gems' score is. Like there's those very distinct like synth
Since
sounds and there's tons of layers on all the music and I can definitely see that. Um I think this album does make a very good run for being one of his best albums just because of the like even like everything around it. I mean, obviously the more popular he gets, the more money he has to like do product like up the production value because like if you listen to songs on like I don't know like fucking Trilogy like they do like listen to like a song on Trilogy and then listen to like one of the songs on this album and like the change in production value almost like makes you like for me personally I was like ew Trilogy ew. Like
it does
going
sound
between the
older.
two it well, yeah, I mean, and that's just because that was like his first three mixtapes are part of Trilogy. So, I mean, it just comes with time, and I think that's kind of an unfair comparison for me to make. But, I mean, just like God, like I keep listening to it like specifically in the car just because of like how insane it sounds. Like it's one of the best produced albums I think he's ever had, if not the best. Um, and I think like his natural evolution to be like he's really like hitting his like artistic stride now because I feel like not that his old albums were bad, but like he's just like rapid firing like high quality music like over and over and over again, and it's insane. So I really appreciate this album, and um, I guess I obviously won't give a score in this, but I in my head it's a top tier album for him.
Yeah, I think it's top tier, absolutely. I was one of the rare takes I feel like that loved it on the first listen even. Um like from my first listen, I definitely appreciated what it was and I could tell that there was a lot more storytelling to this and that it was much more cohesive than anything else really that he's put out since like Kissland. Because yeah, the sonically it's all very similar. It's not an album necessarily that you'd pick out like 7 or 8 singles and like play those on shuffle in a playlist like Andrew kind of alluded to earlier. It's like you listen to the whole thing start to finish. Like I feel like I would be cheating Dawn FM if I didn't, listen to it start to finish. There are a few songs that I'd probably throw in a playlist and listen to here and there, but I like just listening to it front to back, which I rarely do with albums, except for like my first few listens, like After Hours. I hadn't listened to that thing front to back since like its rollout or like since it had first came out, except for recently because I don't know about Ursel, but Andrew and I both did a whole discography listen with all of the Weeknd stuff leading up to this. So, and I felt like that really gave me a good idea of like, where he was going and it does very much feel like a sequel to After Hours, but to me, it feels like he actually mastered his craft with this one and that it's like a really good blend of this like futuristic disco sound with like this 80s pop vibe that he captured in After Hours. It just feels more futuristic and more disco-y, and I love the storytelling to it. It felt a lot more like a positive album. Like he really is going into the light. Like where a lot of the Weeknd stuff is more depressing and like a little more dark. This starts off a little more dark, and I think it has moments even in the second half that are a little darker, but like it's just like to me, a more positive feeling album. And it feels like The Weeknd is really grown up as a person and as an artist, hence the old man in the cover. It really does seem like he's matured a lot and that his sound has matured with this. And I do think that, maybe for some people, with how cohesive it is and how it really does kind of follow one sound, I feel like, throughout. I think that might turn some people off to like listening to it over and over, but I really like that about it. And I do like the EDM kind of tones to it too. I'm a big EDM guy, so like Gasoline. I mean, we'll go through the song specifically, but like Gasoline was a really big surprise to me, and I feel like he definitely experimented too with this. And yeah, like I said, there's less power, I think, in single tracks compared to something like After Hours, or even Kissland, I think, with Kissland being another cohesive album. But I mean, as a whole, this is one of my favorite ones to listen to, one of my favorite Weeknd LPs to actually listen to front to back. But I mean, I've sucked its dick enough.
Well, like, what do you guys think of? One thing I want to talk about is like, what do you guys think of the concept of the album? Not just maybe the album itself, but the actual concept. Because this is also like kind of where I get conflicting thoughts, is because the concept is really cool, right? This like state of purgatory that the Weeknd is going through. But like, I feel like he doesn't do the concept justice sonically as much as he could have, because it's like, I don't know, I think it's like a little goofy that it's like, oh, like, hey, like, what if this album is about purgatory? And you're like, okay, like, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, like, interesting concept, okay. But what if it was just a like disco? What if purgatory was just a disco? And it's like, oh, okay, like, I don't know, like, I thought that was like, I feel like something like purgatory you could take it in a lot more like interesting directions than just like 80s synth. Something that he's been doing a lot differently. I would have loved to see something a lot more like stripped back with relation to the concept of this album, like something a lot more raw for the Weeknd. So I like the concept, but I think the execution is like I don't know if this is the sonically the album that matches what could have matched best with the concept of this album, if that makes sense.
Do you think it was like overproduced at all?
I don't know, like, just the idea that like an album about purgatory is like pretty much entirely just like disco synth pop is like interesting. I like it, like, but it's also like, I don't know, like, I feel like it could have been something a lot more ground level and like stripped back, like I would have loved to see some songs where like you just have the Weeknd's vocals over like a guitar riff, like a slow guitar, or like something a little more stripped back. Maybe it was a little overproduced for the concept, but that's where like I'm saying it's like the albums, when you look at the songs themselves, the production is fucking fantastic by Daniel Lopatin, music producer of Uncut Gems, aka 10 Tricks Never. He's a great producer, but I think with the concept of the album, it's a little like, I don't know, like, am I making sense, or am I like just sounding like I'm off my rocker?
Well, I
don't agree, but I think you make sense. Your reasoning makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, if you think about it, like, okay, if you take everything kind of literally, where like, let's say it is, this album is in a time where the Weeknd is like 80 years old, then it's going to be a lot more futuristic, a lot more dystopian feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure in that era, it's going to sound, I mean, like, it's just very futuristic sounding. So I don't think that, in my opinion, necessarily it's overproduced. I love hearing the Weeknd pull back some of the synth stuff and just give us vocals as well, like maybe Attention and like Starboy, where he just completely like pulls back the background music and he's just like, ooh. But I mean, we get a little bit of that a little bit, I guess, in like maybe the beginning of Every Angel is Terrifying. Um, I don't know. I feel like where with the theme of the album, and maybe it's supposed to be futuristic in a time where the Weeknd is like 80 years old, I think it would fit because I definitely get like a futuristic tone to it. Like future disco vibes. But one thing we haven't really touched on too much, I love the fact that it's like a radio station. Like you
Yeah, I
mentioned
do
it,
like that a lot.
but I think the concept of it being like an hour long, like you know how radio stations do like 90s at noon or like their remix hour, kind of
Yeah.
feels like that, which I think is super duper cool. And I think that plays well into the fact that it does kind of like sonically start to finish, it's very similar. But that like definitely plays to the concept of like this radio station and like this potentially dystopian future. I don't know. I fucking love it. I love it. I think it's so cool. And I think the concept is really cool too, just the radio station and the fact that it is more futuristic sounding, even if it's like very produced. And you see that too throughout.
Yeah,
Like,
I would. Yeah, I just
there's a
wouldn't.
lot of auto tune too, you
I
know.
wouldn't say overproduced. I probably take that statement back. I think it's just like, I think the
Yeah, I
sound, like,
focused a little bit too much probably on that.
yeah, like I just think that the concept of a purgatory album, like, could have been expanded to a lot more different soundscapes than just like kind of eight like synth, if that makes sense. That's kind of like the main takeaway from that.
Yeah, well,
But I
and
do think that
I don't necessarily think that he's dead yet. If we're like if we're taking After Hours as like his crazy life, and like all the cool shit that he's done and all the partying, and then like Dawn FM, I feel like is like him right before death. And
mhm.
I don't know, I don't necessarily think it's like him in purgatory yet. I feel like maybe the third part of this new trilogy might be more like hell and then like he goes to heaven, but this one he's like, it seems like he's just descending into the light, or ascending, I guess. So like
So
toward the end.
purgatory.
Well, no, well, yeah, I don't know. I think he's still alive, and then like maybe he dies toward.
So like he kind of described it as like the Weeknd himself kind of described it as like he views like purgatory as like kind of you're in like a car tunnel, and you see the light at the end and you're just sitting like in a car, waiting to get to the end of that tunnel, and then this album plays on your car radio, while you're going through that car tunnel to the end, to the light, quote unquote. That's kind of like how he's described it.
Okay. Well, I guess when did he do that? Was that on like just a Twitter thread or something?
No, he had like an interview about the album, like, I want to say in the past like a few weeks, where he
Okay.
kind of described it as that, which I think is interesting. I think this album's like vibe and stuff makes a lot more sense when you've seen the videos too.
Yeah.
Like kind of this like underground, like kind of like Matrix-esque, like kind of just disco. It's like very honestly that live stream was like a really good like kind of indicator of the vibe. Like it's like this like part is kind of rave electronic disco going on, but it's like very isolated. Like there was like shots during that live stream where it was like it would pull back and it's just like, there's nothing going on outside of that little small disco. And it feels like strangely isolating. I don't know if that like you guys kind of got that. It's like a very isolated feeling album. It doesn't sound as like epic and grandiose as some of like After Hours tracks do. But it's like it feels like you're in this like never ending like disco essentially.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying, where like it all kind of sonically matches from track to track. And I mean, it has beautiful transitions between track to track. I guess going back to the purgatory thing for a second, for me, it makes sense if it was purgatory or like him just being of really old age, because it gives me like this acceptance vibe, like he's accepting maybe what he's done, and like just coming to terms with like everything in his life, and like accepting the fact that maybe he's not perfect, he's less than zero. But I think either way, like maybe you come to acceptance after death with what happened. Maybe you come to acceptance right before death when you're an old man. But I think I like the idea more that it is like he is either going to heaven or going to hell toward the end of the album.
Well, I think also like part of like from what he said is like, or like from what people have also like discussed is like it's kind of like him as an old man on the cover, because he's pretty much just, his character is just stuck in purgatory, like reminiscing, and like pretty much like the whole Jim Carrey shit and all that is like he's just an old man in purgatory now, and he can't get to the other side until he lets go, essentially, kind of like that last song states. You know, you gotta be heaven to see heaven. But
yeah, that acceptance.
Me and John have been going back and forth a lot. Andrew, how about you get in here and talk about what do you think about the concept? What do you think the concept of the album is, or what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, it's almost like not even his like interview or his comments, but I mean, it is purgatory. I mean, even in like Phantom Regret, you know, like Jim Carrey's like, since all appointments have been postponed forever, like that doesn't sound like you're still alive. It sounds like you're dead already. I mean,
I think his character dies at the end of After Hours, like with Until I Bleed Out.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, even like just watch the music video of Until I Bleed Out.
That makes sense.
I think I kind of think like this album, because I didn't watch a live stream, because I'm a fake fan. I went to bed early because Jordan had to student teach. He had to get up at fucking 6 a.m. So I was a fake fan and went into listening to the album without any like live stream viewing or anything. And I think listening through it and then watching, what was the music video? Oh, it was Sacrifice music video. Like the music videos that I've seen is exactly like how in my head, like I view what's happening during that while the album's going on. It's like exactly how I like imagined it in my head with no prior like knowledge. So I think he did a really good job there on nailing the like aesthetic and like the whole tone and everything of the movie, or of the album, not the movie. I mean, it's just like this really I think it's a super relaxing album for some reason. I don't know if maybe like, because I'm a very visual and like aesthetic person, so like maybe the album cover like made me just like perceive it as very calming because of the like faint blue glow. It's like very relaxing. And I think the movie ended up being, or God, I keep calling it a movie, it feels like a movie.
Feels like a movie, yeah.
I think the album, like what I anticipated it looking like is exactly how the music videos look like. I mean, the Gasoline music video, it's like, you know, all these people just in like this dance club, and like it's, I mean, and they look up from above and it's like all them dead. They're like kind of like looking at like how life was on Earth, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of going into the music videos maybe too much, but I really appreciate how the music videos tie in exactly to the tone that the album sets. And I think like, yeah, that might be a given with some people, but there's some music videos where they don't make fucking any sense compared to the music that they're trying to like portray. Like the one that comes to mind is like the Way Too Sexy music video. That like I didn't anticipate that looking anything like it. I don't know. Drake makes very memeable music videos, but they don't always fit the tone, I guess. But The Weeknd, on the other hand, is like he uses the music videos to like continue telling the story. Like Until I Bleed Out, like, I mean, you can listen to the lyrics, but like you wouldn't even think it's like, you know, he's like dying until like you watch the music video and he like literally dies on the fucking like stage. He just like passes the fuck out and like basically just dies. But I mean, in terms of tone, I definitely hop on the Purgatory bandwagon. I think it's a, like what I would imagine Purgatory is like pretty similar to what this album is like. You're just like in this like holding pattern, and then, you know, Jim Carrey just like leads you to heaven or Las Vegas.
Well, kind of going through the track list, there's only actually, so there's 16 songs total, only like 12 actual songs, so a very concise album if you look at it that way. I figured, so I kind of split the album up like in a certain batch of songs. So let me know what you guys think of this, and we can kind of like talk about it in these batches, essentially. I think the first act of this album is track number one, Dawn FM, all the way through Gasoline, How Do I Make You Love Me, Take My Breath, and Sacrifice. I think that's kind of like the first run of the album. And then I think from A Tale by Quincy to um, Every Angel is Terrifying. So Out of Time, Here We Go Again, Best Friends, Is There Someone Else, and Starry Eyes. Then up to Every Angel is Terrifying. So I'm essentially going to each interlude. So that's the second batch.
Yeah.
And then the final run of the album is Don't Break My Heart, I Heard You're Married, and Less Than Zero. And then finally Phantom Regret. So how does that match up with your guy? Do you guys think that's a good grouping, and we can kind of go from there?
Yeah, definitely. I would say if we split it into like two parts, which I don't want to do, but it would be up to like Out of Time or Here We Go Again. Like first half versus second half. But yeah, it's a three-parter, no doubt. I mean, it's got the 4 interludes then. Well, not
the
4
fucking,
interludes, but
the first third of the album is fucking stacked beyond belief.
Yeah.
oh
So
gosh, yeah,
just
absolutely.
getting right into it. I mean, Dawn FM, that's really just kind of like an intro track. I wouldn't even like classify it as its full like a full track, really. There's got that opening singing by The Weeknd, but then we kind of get cut into Jim Carrey's, intro, like You've Been in Dark for Way Too Long, Time to See the Light, blah, 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 103.5, Dawn FM. And then we start off with the first actual song of the album. And yeah, like Andrew was alluding to, I think that first run from Gasoline, How Do I Make You Love Me, Take My Breath, extended edition, and Sacrifice. God, that is such a fucking
the funny thing is, I thought the extended version of Take My Breath was like dog ass when it was just like a single, but like it fits so well into the album. Like,
yeah,
I'm surprised he released it before the album. Like, I feel like it definitely.
Oh, the extended version.
Yeah, I feel like the extended version of Take My Breath definitely.
Yeah, like
the preceding and after track.
My playlist is like the ones I added to my playlist is Sacrifice, How Do I Make You Love Me, Take My Breath, Gasoline, and Out of Time, and then Less Than Zero. But like all those first 5 are all in that first like third of the album.
Yeah,
the first third of the album, you could break it out and make it its own, and it would still be like a 9 minimum. Like
just like a little.
Yeah,
like a My Dear Melancholy ass project.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would argue the entire first half is heat, but specifically that run up till A Tale by Quincy is so hard hitting, so energetic. It's so good. Specifically, I want to talk about. Okay, I'm going to start off with Gasoline, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on this whole batch, and then I'll hand it over to you guys. Gasoline. At first when I heard it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about what he's doing with his voice. He's like singing in a lower tone, a lower range.
It's 5 a.m. I'm telling you.
It's 5 a.m. I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first when I was watching the live stream, but as time has gone on, as the week has gone by, this song is fucking amazing. This song is really, really good. It's a great opener. I actually love what he does with his vocals now that I've had some time on it. It's my favorite part of the song. And really, I think it sets a good idea of like what he's going to do with this album, because it shows that he's really going in all in with that 80s disco kind of synth sound. Like that voice that he does. That's very similar to like how a lot of like 80s bands and artists like kind of use their voice in that lower, operating voice. And then from there, I think out of this batch, as strong as this batch is, I think How Do I Make You Love Me is the weakest in this batch. I think the hook is probably the weakest part of the song because it sounds kind of like a knockoff Lady Gaga song. It kind of reminds me of like Rain on Me or some shit. But
wait, which one?
How Do I Make You Love?
Yeah, I thought from the first time I heard it that it sounded like a Lady Gaga song. And I like imagine if there's a music video, there will be like, I like,
Lady Gaga remix.
yeah, like, okay, you know how like in Lady Gaga's music videos, she's like in front and then there's just like dancers like spread out like a triangle behind them. I
Yeah.
imagine like there's gonna be a dancing like that because it feels like a Lady Gaga like dance type song.
Man, I guess I shouldn't tell you guys that's my favorite track on the album.
Well, that doesn't mean it's bad. Lady
Yeah,
Gaga makes
it's
bangers, bro.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
what?
true,
It's
true.
not like I said it
yeah.
was like a Trippy Red song.
Exclamation mark.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad song. I just think it kind of sounds like a Lady Gaga song at the hook specifically. But I think the verses in that song and specifically the instrumental outro is fantastic. Where it's like did like where it kind of does that little synth pattern a few times throughout the last minute or so is really like I love that. That's honestly like my favorite part of the song, the part where he's not even on it. But it lets Daniel LaPotent shine his production, and then obviously it carries right into Take My Breath, which is kind of strange that it like starts the Take My Breath instrumental at the very end of How Do I Make You Love Me, because if you're playing the album on shuffle or something, you're gonna just want to hear Take My Breath right afterwards. And obviously the Take My Breath is an extended version. If that song is like the definition of epic to me, just like the building synths specifically in that second instrumental extended section is so fucking badass. Like if you're, I've listened to this album while I was like working, and when I'm typing on the computer, we got headphones on and I'm listening to this album. It's like I'm a DJ. Like I just take one ear, I take one part of the headphone off of my ears that I'm like, just jam it out. Yeah. Like it's awesome. But honestly, my favorite song on the album, I think so. I think it is my favorite song on the album. But I would say close second, like close ones are Gasoline and Take My Breath Extended. Is Sacrifice. I absolutely love the song. It's got
I love Sacrifice.
It's got it's got that it's got that thriller kind of almost like a thriller like instrumental with the Swedish House Mafia production on it. The low guitar riff is so badass, like so amazing. The music video is awesome. It's really like kind of, we were saying, it's kind of gives a good encapsulation of like how the album feels. I'm obsessed with the like that part with that little thing he does.
Yeah, and then when he does his little "oh baby,"
yeah, he goes crazy with the vocals at the end, and then also the hook is super catchy. Honestly, if he's gonna make if there's gonna be another single, I think it will be Sacrifice. I could see Sacrifice blowing up, being super huge. And honestly,
I feel like that's what he wants to happen because that's the first music video he put out. So I feel like you can kind of tell how an artist feels about a song based on how he feels about songs on an album, depending on how what order the music videos come out in.
But pretty much like kind of the encompassing thoughts I want to give on this first third is all these songs are super energetic and super hard hitting, and I really love some of the production on it, the extended electronic runs, like the outro on How Do I Make You Love Me, and obviously Take My Breath. The production is fantastic. It's primarily Swedish House Mafia and Daniel Lopatin to kind of take over for the most part. You also have Max Martin in there. But this is definitely, I think, the strongest run in the album between the three different kind of ways we've split it up. And I think every other kind of batch of songs has some questionable decisions by Abel, I think, that kind of hinder the quality. But I think this is definitely the strongest run on the album, and it definitely is what makes me enjoy this album as much as I do. But yeah, that's kind of like my take on that first stretch of songs. What about you, John?
Yeah, I love the first stretch of songs. I think it is also the strongest part of the album. Like, I really love Gasoline. I didn't know how I felt about it at first too. I feel like I kind of laughed when I watched the live stream the first time. I was like, wait a minute, like this does not sound like The Weeknd. And that's what kind of got my mind on this idea that, okay, this might be like an experimental album. And there's moments of it that feel like that. But I mean, to me, it's more like he's mastering the sound that he started with After Hours, but like keeping it all to one tone. But Gasoline, I really like because it feels Like it's got a lot of that EDM influence. I mean, a lot of the tracks on this album do, but it's like got such a futuristic sound to it, with the 80s feel still from After Hours. It's very punchy, and it's definitely like a headbanger track. And then like how do I make you love me? It's actually at the moment my favorite track on the album. I'm sure that'll change over time. Because I think like Sacrifice is a really close second. But like with How Do I Make You Love Me, I just love the contrast in between like the lows and the highs with like the auto tune to his voice too. And like The Weeknd is someone that does not need auto tune, but like I'm he shouldn't be knocked for it either, because like I mean he can only do so much with his regular voice before it sounds like his other shit. Um, but like the lyricism in it too, and How Do I Make You Love Me, I think is very nice, and it has a nice rhythm, and it's got a nice rhyme to it. A lot of this album has a lot of rhyme to it actually. um and then like the extended version of Take My Breath, I think is amazing. I love love, and I think this is why I like How Do I Make You Love Me so much right now, is because of how smoothly it transitions into the extended Snyder cut of, of Take My Breath, which I mean I've been a Take My Breath stan since it first came out. uh Take My Mid, as Ursula called it in the beginning. I know it's grown on you since, but
Yeah, it's one of my favorites on the album now.
yeah, I've been a stan for that song since the beginning, and I think it's one of his most hard-hitting tracks since Blinding Lights.
Just so epic.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love the extended version and how bassy it is, and it just like it keeps you headbanging the entire time. It like literally, if I was gonna dance to any song in the album, it would be Take My Breath.
I saw fire in your eyes.
Like this song more than any other song in the album really feels like After Hours Part 2. Like it feels like he was directly trying to capture the magic of like Blinding Lights with this track, which I don't
I mean,
think
it was the head single.
right. And I don't think he quite did that. But I really like the song, and I think it's one of the best songs on the album as well. All the songs in this first run through, this first third, are like the best songs on the album. Oh shit, dropped my phone. But yeah, I love the extended cut, the Snyder cut. And then Sacrifice is definitely a banger. It also gives me that like Michael Jackson Thriller vibes, especially like with that electric guitar. um I think it's one of the hottest beats on the entire album,
Yeah.
and I think this will probably end up being the most popular song, Sacrifice, just because it's like it's it's got like its tone obviously, but it's got all of what you love from The Weeknd in one song. So yeah, I mean these are all some of the best songs on the album right now. How Do I Make You Love Me is my favorite, but Sacrifice is a close second, and Take My Breath is a close third, and Gasoline is probably my fourth. Like, it's literally, and that I can see why some people might not like love this album as much as maybe After Hours or something like Starboy, because it is very much front loaded. And if the rest of the album had this kind of heat, I mean, it would be the best Weeknd album ever made easily, but not quite. Not quite. What about you, Andrew? What do you think of the first third?
Yeah, I mean, I share pretty much all the same sentiments as you guys. I think this is the strongest stretch of the album. Sacrifice is my most favorite on the album, and How Do I Make You Love Me is my close second. So I'm like flip flop from you, John. I mean, if you want to start an album out with some heat, this is how you start an album out with some heat. Because like, I mean, I guess it kind of like shows in later parts of the album that like he kind of like blew his load on the first third of the album. But that's not a bad thing because the first third of the album are like top tier tracks. So like,
Oh yeah, and then Jim Carrey even says like, "Oh, let's get to some easy listening."
yeah,
Calm
you get that nice transition there after Out of Time. So, well, I guess we're going. Is this third stopping at Sacrifice, and then Amid
Yeah.
by Quincy starts the next?
Mid by Hail by Mid C.
No, the first third of the album is like, obviously I showed you guys my playlist. Like the whole first third of the album is in my playlist.
It's fantastic.
So like it's pretty money. It's like all the way up until like Out of Time is honestly like, if you want to split into two parts, like even if you extend it to there, it's like still straight gas. Like
Yeah, Out of Time is a bang.
It's
yeah,
pretty P.
yeah. Pushing P.
Yeah. P. The first third of the album is P.
Fucking gonna. She not a lesbian, we give a P, she a lesbian.
Oh my god.
Dude, the
Pushing P.
Weeknd lost that the best album of the weekend just because of that line, that single line.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd probably say Sacrifices, then Gasoline, or actually Sacrifice, and then maybe tie between Gasoline and Take My Breath, and then How Do I Make You Love Me is the fourth favorite out of those, I would say, for me.
I will say, if we can transition the second, third, Arso, if that's okay with you,
Yeah, take it over.
I think A Tale by Quincy is one that I didn't like at first, but I'm like, with it now, just because it's. I was telling John when we were playing, when we were doing some fart night before this to get our vocal warm ups. I think A Tale by Quincy would be better if it wasn't by Quincy. It was like The Weeknd telling a story.
I agree. Yeah.
I get that he really like Abel really likes Quincy and wanted to like have him on the album, but like it just feels so like random and out of place. It's just like not, if he told a different story, I would feel like it's more in place, but like I didn't really like A Tale by Quincy just because it doesn't feel like it fits the album. Like, I mean, I know you're like reminiscing and like ends it with, looking back as a bitch, ain't it? But it's like, what does the story about your mom getting taken away in a straitjacket have to do with like Dawn FM? Like I think that's why I don't like it, just because it doesn't feel like it kind of like cuts the flow of the album. I feel like, not in like necessarily like that it's awful, but it's just like I would have rather had like The Weeknd tell like a story about like his past or something where it makes more sense. And you're following The Weeknd's character throughout this whole experience, and then like Quincy's just in there all of a sudden. He's like, I'm Quincy, my mom left in a straitjacket and I had a bad stepmother, and then here's Out of Time.
I think
the transition's very jarring between Sacrifice and A Tale by Quincy. It's the worst transition in the album, no doubt.
Yeah, I actually don't mind. So just speaking for all the transitions or not transitions, that interludes or whatever you want to call it, like the skits on this album, I don't really knock the album for any of the skits except one. But like Tale by Quincy, I actually like think it fits into the whole purgatory thing, because it's about like kind of quote unquote like looking back. Like pretty much like if you review the theme of the album, like kind of the story of the album is that The Weeknd is stuck in purgatory because he's stuck, like he can't move on and he's reminiscing, and it kind of fits in.
And I don't feel like it's bad because I feel like it just feels out of place because it's not The Weeknd telling a story. Like this whole thing is like The Weeknd's character going through this journey, and then you just throw like, I get that does make sense. I get that like Quincy could narrate a story like that, like Jim Carrey's narrating the other parts. But if he's the narrating something, if Quincy's narrating something, it should be like a story The Weeknd told, or like
I would have almost rather
Weeknd telling it.
Do it at that point. Yeah,
it just feels jarring. Like I get that Abel wanted to put Quincy on the album, but it's just so out of place compared to like the rest of the tone of the like you said, John. Like that's a good point. Like why not have Jim Carrey tell a story like that? He's the narrator throughout the whole album, but then you just throw Quincy in there. You're just like
very jarring.
okay.
Yeah. I think it's really jarring too. Like, I mean, like A Tale by Quincy, I think is still the best interlude. And it's a really nice, like, self therapy session on the album. And it's like super emotional too. But like, I mean, and I'm hearing like the recurring theme of like guilt versus acceptance, looking back on your life. But like, it's just, I mean, the transition itself is just bad.
I honestly think it would have been a bigger flex. Like, I mean, Quincy Jones was like Michael Jackson's guy. Like, he was like Michael Jackson's like producer, like kind of like helped him write songs, put together songs. I think it would have been an even crazier flex if maybe instead of putting him just as spoken word, like actually have him involved in one of the songs, like the actual like production or because I mean I just pulled up the listen because I wanted to make sure I wasn't like speaking out of like context or getting something wrong. But, like, his only involvement with this whole album is this song. He doesn't have any credits on like any production or writing for anything else on this album, which I think is kind of, you know, strange. I also just realized Calvin Harris is on this album.
Which track does it say?
It does, but I kind of want to guess. Take a guess.
Is it Out of Time?
No.
Is it How Do I Make You Love Me?
No. It's
don't
actually,
tell me if I heard You're Married, girl.
It is.
Oh, no way!
Calvin, you bastard.
But
Calvin.
I mean, one thing interesting is OPN, Daniel Lopatin, he pretty much produced every song on the album except Take My Breath, which I think is interesting. And Sacrifice. He produced every other song. So he's kind of like the main producer for the whole album.
Very interesting. The two best songs are not produced by
yeah, that one is produced by Max Martin and the other one is produced by Swedish House Mafia.
I will say though, A Tale by Quincy, the only redeeming thing it does is have a god tier transition into Out of Time.
I agree. And Out of Time is a banger. And I want to see The Weeknd do a video where he's in a DeLorean for Out of Time.
So I like Out of Time. My only thing with it is that it's essentially like I Feel It Coming part 2. Like someone like did like I don't know if you sent this, Andrew, or someone, where it was like someone just layered over the like vocal, like the melody and like the beat, and it like pretty much was exactly like I Feel It Coming. So that kind of like yeah, it kind of loses some points for me there because it just kind of feels like a rehash of I Feel It Coming. With like
I didn't really get I Feel It Coming vibes from it, but I guess I can see
it's still a good song. But
speaking of Starboy redos, fucking God damn it, Best Friends. Just fucking Love to Lay. It's got the Love to Lay beat. That's what it is. Like the intro to Love to Lay is almost the exact same as the intro to Best Friends.
I didn't realize that.
Like, well,
I'll have to listen
maybe it's just because the synth sound is extremely similar. But last night Jordan was like, "This song sounds like fucking Starboy. One of the songs on Starboy sounds exactly like this." And I was like, "Shit, I can't even think of what it's called." But then we went through all of Starboy trying to find it.
Yeah, he does that. Like 6 Feet Under is like pretty much like a redo of Low Life, like the flow of it.
Yeah. Those are both banging tracks, though.
Yeah.
I
mean, I respect it, but also Best Friends is such a fucking stinky song.
But yeah, I guess let me just kind of run through my thoughts. Kind of same thing for the second, fifth. A Tale by Quincy, I gave my thoughts on. Out of Time. I enjoy it. It's kind of like a more mellow track, a bit more of a come down, like in terms of mood from the like very energetic first half. I enjoy it. It's not my favorite. It's kind of like a mid-tier song of the album. But this is where I think like kind of this is where I was saying like some decisions that I think hinder the quality of this album start arising in the second batch. First off, I think this album should have had no features, just like After Hours. I mean, look, Lil Wayne and Tyler the Creator are both fantastic artists, but they add nothing to this album.
God, their features are so bad.
Especially
Lil Wayne.
Yeah, Tyler the Creator's is fine, but Lil Wayne,
it's Lil Wayne's, I guess.
Yeah, Lil Wayne's we'll get to. We'll get to Lil Wayne's feature.
Oh
Um,
God.
but I think, but that's the thing. Like, okay, Out of Time, I think is decent. I think it's a mid-tier album. I think Here We Go Again is beautiful. Like a
And
fantastic.
kill.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic song. Like, absolutely beautiful. Like, gorgeous hook. With the Weeknd, honestly, and that like fits. I feel like that song really fits the kind of purgatory kind of vibe and style, kind of almost what I would imagine like an album of like that's like purgatory, like kind of like looking back, seeing where you are now, taking inventory. That's what the album. One of the probably the biggest flex on the entire album is on the song where he says quarter Billy on an off year. So he's saying he made like probably like 250 million last year, which was his off year, which is crazy if he's telling the
That's
truth.
wild, dude.
Um,
With no tour.
yeah, Tyler the Creator, like I said, his feature's fine, but like the such a dumb way to end it. Like, you go sign this prenup. You
And
go
I
sign this
know. I was
prenup.
like,
You gotta sign this prenup. Uh, Best Friends is like the probably the second to worst song on this album, in my opinion. Um, it's not as bad as when I originally heard it. When I first heard it, I thought it was just a complete miss. Um, I still think the hook is kind of corny, but the song makes a little bit more sense to me now, where it's like kind of like framed as a conversation between two people. If you like listen to the lyrics, it's about like the hook is like she's saying like I don't want to fuck his friends no more, but he's saying you're my best friend now. It's kind of like a conversation between him and this girl. Um, and I do kind of like the beat to it a little more, and I do like the verses. I think the hook is just kind of weak with like "You're my best friend now," but then from there it goes to "Is there someone else," which I think is. Um, so I think, like I said, I think "Here We Go" and "Is There Someone Else" are the best songs outside of that first run of songs. I think "Is There Someone Else" the beat is beautiful, and I really
The
love the
trailer's
hook.
fun.
Yeah, it is the trailer song. I love just honestly the whole song. I love the like kind of it's like a kind of got that smoother kind of vibe of like Out of Time, but I really enjoy it. I also love the outro with like literally like the outro on the song is literally the Uncut Gems of colonoscopy music. The Yeah, it just goes crazy. But this is also another kind of strange decision, just like how I think something that I think would have helped the album out more. I think Starry Eyes is so like monotone. Like it just kind of has this one very specific vibe. And it carries over right from Is There Someone Else, where I honestly think Starry Eyes would have been benefited if it was just an extended outro to Is There Someone Else? Because it feels like a song with like very little identity. Or like I don't know, it just feels like it does feel like a transition song almost. It sounds like an interlude in song format. Like it sounds like kind of like the um repeat after being, like of this album. It doesn't feel like it holds its own weight very well, and it feels very much like a continuation of Is There Someone Else, like an outro, like its outro. So I think like kind of my two critiques of the second bunch is the Tyler the Creator feature doesn't really add much. I think the Best Friends hook is kind of corny, and I think Starry Eyes should have really just been an extended outro to Is There Someone Else. I think we really needed a two-parter on this album. I think this could have been it. And I think that was a little bit of a missed opportunity because I think Starry Eyes is a weaker track on its own. But
yeah,
that
that's
is kind
like
of,
one of the only Weekend albums with no two-part tracks.
yeah, which is a bit of a shame. But that's kind of my take on and some of the critiques that I've kind of started popping up in that second bunch. But what about you, Andrew? How about you kind of give us the run through that second bunch?
I mean, John, did you want to go? I saw you
Yeah, well,
doing
I
some
just had some.
finagling.
Yeah, I just had some fresh thoughts after Ursel got his points out. Well, like Out of Time, I know we talked about it a little bit, but it's so smooth. Dude, it's so smooth and jazzy, and like this was actually like this was my initial favorite track on the album. Like when I was showing Casey just a few songs out of the album, like before she went to work one morning, I showed her that first. Out of Time was the first one.
Not Sacrifice.
Not Sacrifice, actually.
Out of time.
Well, I showed her Out of Time, and then I played Gasoline through Sacrifice.
Okay.
But Out of Time is so smooth, and it's got that jazz feeling to me. Like it almost feels like it's got like a 70s vibe.
I think it samples like a Japanese like
Yes, it
R&B song or
does.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I have to find what it is, but I did see a TikTok where somebody was like, "This is what it's sampling."
And in my opinion, vocally, I think The Weeknd is the best on Out of Time because he's really like he is kind of like pulling out all the stops on this one. And in my opinion, vocally and going into all of his different octaves. But I love Out of Time. It was my first favorite track. Now it's top 5, for sure. But yeah, this second, third, I think is yes, there's a huge stinker that we're gonna get to in the third of the album. And I think I'm glad we can all agree that that's the stinkiest fucking song that The Weeknd's probably ever put out. Nah, probably maybe not, but stinkiest song in that album. I like False Alarm, damn it.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I mean, Out of Time is smooth as hell. Here We Go Again is amazing. Actually,
Yeah.
I thought this was like almost like the Snow Child of this album.
Yeah, it is. That's what I think too.
Yeah,
And they're both great songs.
Yeah, well, I actually agree now. But
you think Snow Child's good now?
yeah, after giving After Hours 3 back-to-back listens before this album came out, and I'm gonna just go ahead and amend my score. I would actually give well, we're gonna rank them soon.
Yeah,
but I would give
so save it for them.
Hold
Save it.
Hold on.
Okay,
Hold
I'll
off,
save it.
buddy.
I'll save it.
But say what you say about Snow Child. Give Snow Child it's love.
I do like it. I do like it. I just think it's like I like any song where The Weeknd's flexing on us. So, and like what was the one from Starboy? Was it Party Monster that he was flexing on us, or was it
Reminder?
Reminder,
Yeah.
yes. And I love those tracks. Even though Reminder doesn't really sound like those two, like Snow Child.
No. The one he flexed on Starboy was like Sidewalks.
Yeah, that's true. But that song's stinky.
You guys don't like the flex tracks.
The flex tracks.
Nah, Snow Child still stinks.
But
Snow Child was
think
great.
I think Here We Go Again is the Snow Child of this album.
I agree, 100%. It's
Except
like a more beautiful. It's like a more beautiful rendition of Snow Child
Yeah, I agree. Except
with a pointless hook, a feature.
yes. Oh, dude, the feature is so bad. Okay, it's not so bad. Like Tyler, the Creator's fine until he repeats, "You gonna sign this prenup? You gonna sign this prenup?" It's like I don't know. I kind of cringe every time I hear his feature, especially that part of it specifically. But the song otherwise is really good, and it's actually one of the better songs I feel like in the second half. Not necessarily the second third, because I would say Out of Time is in the first half. But Best Friends, I think, is pretty good actually. I don't necessarily share the sentiment that it's like one of the weaker tracks. I think it's probably one of the weaker tracks, but I don't think it's as stinky as
I don't think it's stinky, but there's one song on this album that is a complete misfire.
Stinky.
We'll get to that.
Miss. It's a total miss. And I didn't want to say it was a miss at first, because I wanted to like just be a total contrarian and give this album as much praise as I could just to be against you, but no, that's not what I did. But with our conversations, it did kind of get there. But Best Friends is good. I think it's fine. I like the beat actually more than anything, and yeah, it is like a conversation, and I feel like I got that initially from it. But it is like I don't know. It's
the transition to Is There Someone Else is probably the best part of that song.
Yeah, and I like Is There Someone Else a lot. It sounds like it sounds like it could have fit into the first third of the album, just like it sounds pretty similar to it. But I really like Is There Someone Else a lot. I don't really have a lot specifically to say on it. For some reason, I'm like blanking on how it sounds a little bit. I had something to say on it earlier. Yeah, but I mean, I like it. I know I do. And then Starry Eyes, yeah, that's the most, in my opinion, that's probably the second worst song on the album just because of how forgettable it is. Like I I can't pick out a single like I've listened to this album probably 16 times at least, and I can't think of a single lyric from it
I was gonna
except
say it feels like an
Starry Eyes.
outro. It feels like an interlude or an outro, like
I
that's
can't
what I feel.
remember anything about Starry Eyes. I have to like listen to it to like remember how it sounds.
Same. Where like every other song I can like look at the name and be like, oh yeah, that's how it goes. But Starry Eyes is forgettable. And yeah, I think is there someone else in Starry Eyes actually could have just been one track. Um, but I like how Starry Eyes kind of leads into the third interlude, but or the second, I guess, interlude technically. But Andrew, what do you think on the second, third of the album?
I mean, Here We Go Again is good until Tyler the Creator comes in. Best Friends, Stinky. Is There Someone Else? I I feel like I like that song more just because like when I watched the trailer and got hyped for the album, that's the
Yeah.
song I heard. Like it might be like unfairly weighted because
Oh
of that.
yeah. Now I remember.
Starry Eyes, I can't even remember how the fuck it goes. And then I mean the second this like middle part, um if Out of Time wasn't in there, it'd probably be a pretty shit like stretch. Like it would probably just stink. I feel
The
like
middle of the album and the most mid.
yeah, I feel like it's just like not that the songs are bad, it just like doesn't like when he started the album so well with that first third, like I feel like it's obviously hard to even like match that. So like it kind of it really cools down. I mean, and even like Jim Carrey in the when he's talking, he's like 30 minutes of relaxed music. And I mean, this is fucking relaxing music, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, at the end of Out of Time.
Mhm. So like I guess kind of like I don't think this is the worst of the three, but I think it's pretty like but I think it's close to it. I think there's specific things about the final stretch that make it my least favorite. Potentially because there's some just straight up offensive things going on in the final third.
I think there's only one offensive. Well, I know what you're referring to, yeah, but
yeah. So should we get into that final third?
yeah.
Okay.
Unless Andrew, you have more to say.
Now let's get into
okay.
it.
So I've been waiting. I've been holding this one back. So I was mentioned earlier, I don't hold anything against this album having like 4 fucking skits at all. I actually think some of them are pretty beautiful, like Phantom Regret by Jim, final track. But like, oh my god, every angel is terrifying is the biggest blue balls in the history of fucking music ever. Like that first like minute of the song is like, oh my god, like dude, what is the Weeknd about to do, bro? Like these vocals are fucking insane. Like
They were fucking insane.
The build up is amazing. This is the same shit that he like used to hype it's the song playing throughout the fucking trailer for the album. Like it's like, damn bro, like this is the song from the trailer. Like the other stuff, think about it, all the other songs in the trailers. Is There Someone Else? He Sacrifice, he teased that's in the trailer. Like that's he. What is he going to do with Every Angel's Terrifying? This intro is amazing. And then what we essentially get is a shitty Black Mirror fucking radio advertisement. Literally,
444.
That's yeah, like literally the one
plus $3.95 shipping.
That's the one thing I'm going to steal from Anthony Fantano, because honestly, that sums it up perfectly. It just sounds like a fucking like a shitty Black Mirror ad. It's honestly like a huge blue balls. It's honestly kind of fucking day for something, but goddamn it, like in the grand scheme of things, every time I hear the song on the album, if I'm doing a full run through of it, and I've heard this album probably like 10 to 12 times, the song is always like I'm always on the verge of like opening up my fucking like Apple Music and just skipping it. It's kind of like goofy the first time around, but overall, I think the song is very offensive to my ears. Uh, uh, Don't Break My Heart. I was actually pretty big on it when I first heard it, but for some reason, it kind of gives me similar vibes to How Do I Make You Love Me?
Yes,
Which,
I was gonna say the same thing. It's like a part two.
yeah, which is weird because they're both on the same album. So it's kind of, it feels weird to do like something that sounds like sonically very similar to something like very like we've talked about how a lot of the songs on this album have very similar soundscape. These two in particular sound like they're like coming from two versions of the same song.
Yeah.
You could kind of give it a knock for that. But I still enjoy it. I think it sounds really good. And like, the just when the hook kicks in, like "Don't Break My Heart," like it just like I think is really nice. And then also kind of the like I kind of like that too.
Our listeners are probably having a great time this
yeah.
week.
But 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 your
The
ears
big ass
cannot,
butt.
yeah, your ears cannot enjoy things for too much longer. And this honestly, I these two things, but specifically this song, I don't want to make it as big of a deal. Like it's gonna sound like a bigger deal than I'm gonna probably. Let me start over, okay?
Right.
this
Just word
this
diarrhea.
okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm totally forgetting how to speak when I'm about to shit on the song. The reason why this album takes a kind of a big hit is actually partially because of a song like this. Because because this album has 12 songs essentially. And I like when albums are concise instead of being overbloated messes. But when the less songs you have, the more you have to make sure that every song, like if you have a 10-song album, every one of those songs has to hit, in my opinion. Like when as opposed to if you have like a 20-song album, you have a little bit of leeway for a couple stinkers. I think I Heard You're Married is probably the worst song that The Weeknd has made in the past 5 years. And like
I'd have
that's
to agree.
I
and
would
that
agree with that.
and that's bad. Like that's bad. Like when this is your shortest album since 2013 and you have one of the worst songs of your career in a very concise album, like that's damaging the batting average really bad. Like this is not a good song. I think the hook is terrible and cringe and corny. I think it's weird that it's about potentially Ariana Grande. But from there, the Lil Wayne feature is fucking atrocious.
Dude,
The
I don't
That
want
is offensive.
I don't want to be mean, but like Lil Wayne's got to fucking hang it up, bro. Like
Lil
he
Wayne
sucks.
no,
ass.
but
Definitely
no,
offensive.
I know. I'm not even gonna say that. Lil Wayne is fantastic. I mean, he can go hard on the features. Like, I mean, on CLB, his feature is amazing in my opinion. Like,
Yeah,
but
I
this,
agree.
I just think he doesn't fit. The second you hear the song, it's like the song started playing. The first thing that immediately went to my head was, how the fuck is Wheezy F Baby gonna fit on this fucking beat?
And he
And honestly,
doesn't.
and he doesn't. And the
Still
worst
not an
line,
answered question.
yeah, the worst line on this album is fucking "You like it dirty
I
and
was
I'm
gonna
dirty
say
hair. You like it dirty, I'm
Yeah.
dirty hairy." It's
the
fucking
other one
terrible.
that's pretty bad is when he says, "And tell hubby I'll kill him. No hubcap."
No hubcap.
No hubcap. So
But
bad.
honestly, I think so. Honestly, nothing been super fantastic in this last third, but I think Less Than Zero is a beautiful closer. I think when I first heard it, I really was not that hot on it because it sounded like, as I described it to these guys, a song that you'd hear like at the end of a Disney Channel movie. Um, it's still like very bubbly, but I think it's like, I think for maybe where The Weeknd is at in his headspace, like this is a very beautiful song. And I think if kind of like this, I don't think it's the best song. I think it's like probably a middle tier song on the whole album. But I think it's a good closer, especially followed by Phantom Regret by Jim, which I think is a really cool like spoken word outro. But I think this final third is really the weakest part. And honestly, what is does bring my score down. Definitely like Every Angel is Terrifying is a cock tease, and that's probably up to personal preference, like how much that affects you. But I think that song was a waste of an intro, and it's kind of an annoying interlude, to be honest. And then I Heard You're Married. It's like yeah, like honestly, probably the worst Weekend song that I've heard since False Alarm. Um,
Bro, and I like False
yeah,
Alarms. So for me,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
way
yeah,
down there.
yeah. And like I said, like if this album was like the length of Starboy, if it was 18 songs, 18 full songs, and this was in that album, it's not something you'd consider that much. But when it's 12 songs and you have one like straight stinker, that's kind of a big deal, I think. But
The
that's
song
kind
is
of my
like
take.
the Venom "Let There Be Carnage" of the album.
Yeah.
Like a straight Steve.
Venom, let there be
But
carnage.
that's kind of my take on the final third and kind of my argument for why I think it is the weakest batch of the three. But what do you guys think, Andrew? Andrew, how about you start off?
This final third, I think, doesn't necessarily like ruin my rating, but it definitely like I Heard You're Married definitely knocks it down a little bit, just because God Jesus, it's so fucking awful. And like you said, like um Every Angel Is Terrifying is just like a total blue balls. Like you're like, oh my God, this is like amazing. It's like Every Angel Is Terrifying. And it's
Yeah,
just like,
Graphic,
that's
sexy.
yeah. I'm sorry that Every Angel Is Terrifying. That was so cringe hearing that. Like,
yeah.
I was like, bad,
I
shitty
Laughed
Blackberry
at it.
skit.
Casey laughed at it when she heard it.
Every angel is terrifying. Like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up, dude. Go sing. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's the final third of the album just kind of like it does like make it like less than perfect, I guess. If like if it was trying to be a 10 out of 10, this last third is like it like was running to the finish line and like tripped over its own dick and like face planted like 10 feet before the finish line. Like all you had to do was just like write out the great sound that you made in the first two thirds, and then you throw in Little Wayne to just fuck up the whole flow of the album. He's gonna kill Hubby, no hubcap, bro, no hubcap.
in the penultimate song of the album.
Jesus,
You gotta keep
awful.
him. Yeah.
Lesson Zero is really good. Sounds like a Post Malone song that the Weeknd just like put vocals over.
Yeah, it does.
Which isn't, I mean, which is really, it's a really good song. That was actually my favorite after my first couple listen throughs. That was my favorite on the album, but I think now like I mean it's like up there, but it's not my favorite anymore. And then the good old outro Phantom Regret by Jim, the little Dr. Seuss purgatory novel. I was telling John like it sounds, and I was telling Jordan last night, like if you read through like the lyrics of Phantom Regret, it sounds like it like reads like a fucking Dr. Seuss book. Like
Divine Boogaloo.
there's a lot of like rhyming in there that I didn't even notice the first time. But it like I was just like, this feels like a fucking I'm trying to look at the lyrics, sorry. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, and it's read by Jim Carrey, and it's a beautiful outro to the album. Just like it's trying to make up for all like the dog shit that's in the other parts of this last third, and that's why it's kind of sad. Like why couldn't we get something really good in the lyric? Like why couldn't we have gotten a fucking Trippy Red feature? And I hope
Nav feature.
I know you're
He's XO.
I Heard You're Married girl could use
A nav feature would have been better than the
it could have used the Trippy Red feature, so he could have talked about fucking Raising Cane's again. Like that's what this album's missing is Raising Cane's, bro.
Oh my god.
But no, I think it's really good. And then it ends with the good old Dr. Seuss read through by Jim Carrey. I honestly think somebody should make like those lyrics in the like if I was an artist and could draw like Dr. Seuss, I would make that into a book. I think
That'd be cool.
I think the lyrics are very relaxing. Like when he's like, "Oh, like in the iconic line, do you remember them well? Were you high or were you just stoned?" Like, Jesus, dude, like you're making me think too deep about myself. But yeah, I mean, the last third gets saved by the last two songs on the song and intro on the album.
They better say
outro.
Saving this album.
No, fuck no. No. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Not too hot on the last third, but Less Than Zero and Phantom Regret come in to save the day. like Raising Cane's.
I think I mean, okay, Every Angel is terrifying. I actually don't think it's quite as offensive as Ursula makes it seem like it is. It definitely like I feel like for this radio station there needed to be one commercial, except for the fact that Jim Carrey specifically said at the outro of Out of Time, he's like, get ready for 30 minutes of uninterrupted listening. And guess what?
Yeah, we got
We
an
got
ad.
interrupted. We fucking got interrupted by a commercial.
A commercial and fucking Lil Wayne.
And Lil Wayne. Easy listening my ass, dude. Lil Wayne hurt my ears. No, but I mean, I like the commercial. I thought it was kind of cool. And I think it kind of gave it more of a dystopian kind of feel, or futuristic kind of feel in a weird way. But the intro was definitely the strongest part of Every Angel's Terrifying. Don't Break My Heart is definitely a part 2 to How Do I Make You Love Me, but I like it for that reason, actually, because I really like the sound of those two songs. Like the vocal contrast and the beat are very similar and remind me of each other. I Heard You're Married, Girl. It's funny because there were moments this week where that shit was actually stuck in my head, but I think it was stuck in my head because it's so fucking bad and it stands out on the album because it's so bad. Like if I were to give an individual rating to this song, it'd be like a 3 because
when you roasted me for saying it was like a 4.
Yeah,
I remember that. You're like, what? No way, bro. Nothing the Weeknd has made is below a 6.
oh yeah, I know that was cap for sure, but no, this is actually the worst song
That was
I've heard.
hubcap, John.
That was hubcap, exactly. No, this is actually the most offensive fucking song on the album and probably the worst Weeknd song since Dark Times with Ed Sheeran on Beauty Behind the Madness.
In the dark times.
And I would almost argue that Dark Times is better than this song in some regard.
I don't know about that one.
And Ed Sheeran and The Weeknd did not need to make a track together. But luckily Less Than Zero brings it back on track, and I think it saves this final third. And I would almost say that the middle third is probably the worst because Starry Eyes is it's so forgettable, and then like Best Friends is just okay. And I don't think that I Heard You're Married is enough to bring it. I mean, it brings.
You think
down
it being the worst Weeknd song of all time doesn't bring down the last third?
Not quite, because Don't Break My Heart and Less Than Zero are like in my top half for songs, and I think they're really, really, really good by themselves. But yeah, I mean, I Heard You're Married is a stink. I can't say it enough how stinky it is. Like that's gonna be a skip, honestly, for my listens.
Never getting added to my phone ever.
Yeah, it's added because I have every Weeknd song ever added to my phone actually, but it'll be a skip for me. And I might actually have to delete it from from my phone. It might be the only Weeknd song that I actually delete from my phone. Can't stress enough how stinky it is. In my opinion, I actually think Less Than Zero reminds me of I Feel It Coming more than anything because of the tone of it and how like bubbly it is, but I really like it. And then Phantom Regret by Jim is a great speaking outro, I think. And it really actually does make you think a lot. And it's like, in order to see heaven, you got to be heaven. Like it honestly makes you reflect on yourself a little bit. And it's like, okay, like maybe I should be more positive even in these trying times, especially when like I fucking listened to this primarily when I had COVID. So I definitely ran with that, like, you got to be more positive vibe to the outro. And the album as a whole, I think, is a lot more positive than some of his prior projects. But yeah, I mean, I like the final third other than I Heard You're Married, and Lil Wayne should be he should retire because
he should be sent to Guantanamo Bay for his crimes against this album.
Yeah, It's bad. I actually can't think of a song that I hate more than that from The Weeknd.
Hey, every album,
I think Dark Time's the worst.
this album
up there.
This album, if it's like a movie, every movie needs a villain, and Lil Wayne is the villain of this album.
Yeah. Lil Wayne is literally like the devil that's like, all right, Abel, do you want to go to hell or do you want to
no
ascend to the
hubcap?
light? Oh God, it's so bad. And it's just such a miss. And like Ursel said, it's cringy. Like
It doesn't even fit like the story.
It doesn't.
Like, what the fuck does I heard you're married, girl.
So like that's like the one thing, like kind of like I saw this and I couldn't get this out of my head. Kind of like talking about like how you're saying it doesn't fit like the theme is. It's kind of like that's why I was saying like I feel like the purgatory theme opens the doors to a lot of different topics and different sounds, and like this feels like very narrow at times, is because like also like yeah like introspection, right? Like he's like or like it he's supposed to be looking
self-reflecting
or self-reflecting, but it feels like the furthest that the Weeknd is able to like look back and reflect on is like his relationships with women. It would have been nice to get some introspection on like maybe glass half full, looking at like looking at like
why he devolved into a druggie and was homeless for a
while.
Yeah,
like it would have been interesting to really dive into like him as a human being and really introspect. And that scope is really just limited to disco pop and like lovers at the end of the day. Like, and that's kind of I feel also is like a missed opportunity.
That's fair. Yeah, after talking through it, I kind of agree.
But from there, I do want to kind of talk about some things outside of the album, and then we'll kind of come back to the album. One thing I've noted is I want to talk about kind of going back to the rollout conversation is, and I think is really surprising was how much this album actually underperformed. It only sold 154,000 in its first week. Just for reference, Gunna only sold less by like 2,000. Gunna only sold 2,000 less copies than The Weeknd.
That's bonkers.
Just for reference for other album sales, I'm going to just run this through. Starboy sold 350,000 first week. Beauty Behind the Madness sold 412,000 first week. After Hours sold 450,000 first week. Fuck, even My Dear Melancholy sold 170,000 first week.
What?
So kind of surprising. The one factor that you can definitely attribute to it is the fact that he didn't have any like actual album sales. Just for reference, this album, in terms of streaming numbers, was not that far off from After Hours, only like a few million short. So the streaming numbers are relatively similar to After Hours, but he pretty much got no like physical sales. So maybe his sales will hold like maybe this next week if like the album gets released physically, because that, unlike most artists, that is a big part of the Weeknd's sale numbers. But I don't know, what do you think? What do you guys think? Do you think contributed to this album underperforming? I think maybe the rollout, I think maybe an extended rollout would have benefited him as well. I also think partially the initial reception of this album to the masses was not that hot. A lot of people that first couple of days were really not that hot. Like everyone I was talking to was not really like fucking with this album that much. And yeah, the reception I think has gotten a little bit warmer. But definitely I think those first couple of days of mixed reception didn't help it either. But what do you guys think about this album underperforming pretty fucking hard? On the commercial end at least.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's part of the rollout. And I think like you said, like My Dear Melancholy like outsold it, but like also My Dear Melancholy is like the first sounds we got from The Weeknd after Starboy. And it was like a huge gap, which probably contributed. I don't know. I'm like honestly kind of surprised because he kept teasing an album for like a while ever since Take My Breath came out. So I'm like kind of surprised.
And the gap between this and After Hours was longer than the gap between like My Dear Melancholy and Starboy.
Yeah. I honestly think if Sacrifice would have also came out as a single, and then like maybe a slightly extended rollout, like maybe if we got Sacrifice on New Year's Day and then he was like, all right, you're getting an album in 7 days. I think that might have played into it. But I mean, people are streaming more. I mean, even more than 2020, I think streaming services are just taking over in general.
When I can't even give this album like one of the highest honors I can, which is purchasing the physical fucking disc of the album.
I would get a vinyl of it, honestly, if it was put out. I mean, I think he is putting one out.
Yeah.
And it's
They have
not
some,
shipping out till like March, right?
Not till September because Adele's mid-ass album bottlenecked all the vinyls.
Oh yeah, and Adele's 30 was pretty mid, in my opinion.
I think part of the initial reception, I think kind of speaks to this where I'm gonna say it. I think the general public is either kind of tired of or does not want to continuously hear The Weeknd over this sort of production.
Yeah, I think he needs a different sound direction in his neck. Well, I don't think we will get it since it's part of a trilogy, but I feel like he's eventually gonna have to completely change up his sound direction.
Because I think I think it specifically has to do with like the fact that this sound that he's been doing is like very specific. Like, if that makes sense. Like this 80s synth sound he's been rocking with for a minute, and it's a very specific sound. And like,
especially in this album, it's all very
that's the whole sound.
yeah.
Well, and like that sound in the music industry in general has been very saturated because he like kicked it off
because of him
with Starboy.
Yeah.
Like he was like the leader in like this 80s synth pop kind of renaissance, and now it's just like very saturated. And I feel like now people are like, whoa, like he was like the pioneer of this renaissance, but now he's just like everything sounds like it. So now it just sounds like everything else.
And it does, but I feel like this, in my opinion, is more like a futuristic, like almost 70s disco. But I mean, even if we didn't get super technical and argue about like genres and shit, I do think it's pretty damn similar, especially to like the average listener. I feel like that.
Yeah, I'm speaking in the like vein of the average listener as opposed to like my specific thoughts, because like I like my friend that like is living with me for a few months, like he listened to the album with me, you know, like during that live stream, and he's not like a big like hardcore Weeknd fan. He's just like a casual listener of to him The Weeknd is just another artist, right?
Sure.
And like I was kind of I asked him, I talked to him, I'm like, hey, like I know I have like kind of different thoughts because I'm like a big Weeknd guy, but like what are your thoughts on it? Because you're not like a Weeknd fan, quote unquote. And like he was just like, he told me, he was like, it just sounded like what you would expect in a Weeknd album to sound like. Like it just sounds like he kind of like phoned it in, which I don't think he phoned it in, but like,
no, yeah, I don't think so either, but I could see that.
To the average listener, it's like, oh, another fucking 80s, 70s type song, you know, like that's kind of like where my initial like not distaste, but like disappointment came from also. And I think maybe that's what hampered the first week's sale. Maybe that's also like Take My Breath like was not that popular, and it's an amazing song. I think it's better than Blinding Lights, but it's like I wonder if like are people just sick of that sound? Like, I mean, shit, if you look
come out too soon,
yeah, I mean, like even that
still banging.
Yeah, I mean, look at Billboard right now. Save Your Tears is still in the top 20. Like that album is like Save Your Tears is higher than Take My Breath. Take My Breath isn't even on the Hot 100 anymore. Like it felt like, and Save Your Tears is 20. Like just think about that. Like After Hours that's the other thing. I feel like this, even though it's been almost 2 years since After Hours came out, I feel like this he could have stretched After Hours out.
Yeah,
like
I
honestly.
think so too. The
thing that also
another year, honestly.
The other thing that hampers it is he didn't get to do his After Hours tour when he wanted to, which would have kind of like led into like maybe a new album. And maybe that's like part of the reason is because it doesn't feel like there's like a specific break happening. It just feels like, I mean, and being part of a trilogy, it kind of makes sense to an extent, but like in terms of like artistic, like an artist strategy, I feel like most of the time they try to like, once that tour is done, then they like finish up the next album. Like I feel like if he had a tour last year, this album wouldn't have come out till next year probably.
Yeah, and I think
it feels like
it could have waited a little bit, even though I as a Weeknd fan love that it came out so soon.
Oh yeah, I'm good with it, but from
To
his
the-
point of view, for the general listening public, kind of hampered it a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it feels like it's still part of, I mean, and it is like the after hours era, you know.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But from there, I want to ask you guys, where do you want the Weeknd to go next? Because obviously it seems like this next album, maybe it's gonna be called Afterlife or Heaven or Las Vegas or some shit like that. I feel like now it's like a kind of a deciding point where it's like, okay, am I gonna make an album that sounds like heaven, or am I gonna make an album that sounds like hell, or am I gonna do like maybe a mix of both? Um, I don't know. You know, good for Abel that he's like in a more positive space, but um, I don't think it's a coincidence that his best albums come with darker tones. I think generally that's usually the most interesting subject matter to begin with, for not just music, but for anything. And I think that's also where you just get like some of the best content from any like creator is when they're kind of their back is up against the wall mentally or like literally, when they have like something to um, prove, or you know like really like you know they have some burdens to lose get take off their shoulders or things like that. I think that's kind of when the best music comes out, and I think that's why like After Hours was so great. And I think kind of like what I was saying, I think he needs to like maybe find a little bit more of a balance instead of going to like full on like disco pop, um which is like, you know, is good, but I love for him to kind of find a little bit more of that balance. I mean, if I had to choose, if I'm being honest, I would love for the final part to be hell, but I think he's probably going to go the heaven route for that third part. But what do you guys? Where do you want the Weeknd to go next? I'll say this sonically. I want something. I want him to make something akin to like Blonde, like something super stripped back, something super raw, and like hard out on his sleeve. You know, where he's the focus. It's not like you know, something just super raw and stripped back, and you really see like kind of the Weeknd for who he is. We get not just introspection on his lovers, but his entire life. We really, you know, kind of lay it all out for him emotionally. That's where I would really want something for the Weeknd.
Do you want that because you want the because somebody needs to fill Frank Ocean's power vacuum that he left behind, or
Yeah, for real. No, but like there's songs like kind of like on Blonde, which I don't really talk about. I haven't talked about that album that much. Is like, but like there's songs on that album that sound like purgatory, like White Ferrari. Kind of feels like this state of purgatory to me. And I would love for like the Weeknd to make something like that. I think
and self-control.
yeah, something really like I think yeah, I'd love to like more. I would love for him to continue that sonic experimentation, but I would love for him to really step away from the disco in the 80s, because I think we know, Abel, that you're good at making that music. I would love for you to tackle something new sonically, in a different soundscape. We all know you make fantastic disco and 80s and 70s music. We know you make good like synth music. I think it's time for you to try something new. And I'd love for him to go in that direction. But where do you guys want to see the Weeknd go next?
I mean, we know, like you said, the next album is going to be, you know, similar to this, but once he's out of this era, I mean, I think something like akin to like a Frank Ocean style would be welcomed. And I think all the people that clamor for like, oh, we need a new trilogy album, like, you know, not that we need a new trio of albums, but we need a new trilogy sounding album. Like, I feel like that would satisfy those people as well. I I don't know. He's after this trilogy, I think his allowance for using this type of sound is like almost empty. So like I feel like he's got to figure something out. I mean, and we'll see, like depending on how the next album goes. I mean, shit, it kind of sounds like he's almost like, I think John, you mentioned this, like it's like he's winding down his career almost. Like not like he's gonna retire, but it feels like this is kind of like he's hitting like the peak of like this like super involved, super like fast paced rollouts, you know, like just content. Feel like he's kind of will start to retreat. I don't know if he will or not, but I feel like that's kind of what it's feeling like.
He has an HBO show coming out.
I know, but I feel like he might like, You know how like
And he's gonna be in it.
you know how Childish Gambino kind of like moved
Oh
over
yeah,
to like TV and movies and like producing stuff. Like he produced Atlanta, didn't he? Or more
and
of
he's
a
in
some
Atlanta. Yeah,
show. Yeah,
yeah,
I feel like The Weeknd might be after his Uncut Gems experience, he might have had like some kind of like epiphany, like, well, you know, I kind of want to move into like visual media instead
I've
of
been
just
hearing
music.
I've been hearing since like the Starboy era that he's been thinking about that, I thought. And I don't know.
yeah.
I don't remember where I
Yeah.
heard
He
And
has a
maybe this is, I mean, we don't know how it's going to go in the future, but maybe he, you know, started his career off with the trilogy. Maybe he's ending it with the trilogy too. So,
that's kind of what I
yeah.
think. I
I
actually
think
think the next album might be his last.
I think if I don't think his next album will be his last, but I think he might retire the Weekend moniker.
yeah, he
That's what
might
I've
just
seen.
go back to being Abel Tesfaye.
Yeah. But tell me if this sounds kind of familiar to what you guys have seen. His HBO TV show is about a club that is a musical that is a cult. Tell me if that sounds kind of familiar to the music videos, honestly.
Yeah.
True. Like
uh,
Sacrifice's music
yeah,
video. Definitely
yeah,
cult like.
and I think he's supposed to be like the cult leader in the TV show. Uh,
Interesting.
I mean, if
uh,
he moves into being like a, you know, now Childish Gambino retired, that name went to being
Donald
Donald
Glover.
Glover full time and just kind of moving on in the visual medium, I'd be fine with that. I mean, he obviously has a very good, especially like just watching his music videos, has a very good artistic direction. Um,
Mhm.
and I think he has a good eye for, you know, good cinematography and direction, even if he's not the one obviously directing all the music videos, but he obviously as an artist has a large part in how he wants it portrayed. And I think the way he portrays all of his songs in music videos is done very well. And I think like I said earlier, like it added to the experience of this album. You know, seeing the music videos and realizing that, you know, the direction the songs go is the exact same direction that the style of the music videos have and kind of the tone that music videos have. So I mean, if he moves into just being like a producer or director or, you know, doing something like that, I'm all for it. I feel like he could have a very good career in TV/movie. I don't know if he'd move into movies, but he would probably do like some kind of like FX or HBO show or something like that. That's kind of like, you know, the more
Mhm.
premium, like premium cable, um, you know, landing spot for his stuff that he puts out. But I guess I just kind of rambled on. But I mean, I would like I think I'm very interested to see how that TV show that he's doing goes, with the Euphoria director. Um
Yeah, I think the show's called The Idol.
yeah, I'm very interested. If that takes off, I mean, if that goes really well and people like revere it like they revere Euphoria, I feel like he would probably
And
actually he would probably seriously consider stepping away from
he's
music and just doing that full time.
he's actually the show's being made with the creator of Euphoria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I
Man.
don't know, John. Sounds like you should watch fucking Euphoria.
I guess so. Well, I'm excited to see this new Weekend show, but for like what I hope for from the next album specifically, I do think it's gonna be his last album. I mean, he's put out over 100 fucking songs in his discography now, or close to it. And that's a lot of music, dude. That's insane. And he's had an insane run over the last decade, but um I think he'll do in his next album a mix of like heaven and hell. I think it'll probably be like a first and second half where like the first half is hell and then maybe he
A
escapes out of
double
it.
album.
Yeah, is like, but I don't think it'll be like insane in length. It'll probably be like 16 songs or so, but like I think he'll probably cut out the interludes. I think he's going to do more hard-hitting tracks in this third part. I think we got the nice like Dawn FM in terms of the new trilogy might feel like a big old interlude. Who knows? And I think like the cohesive storytelling that he did with Dawn FM, I think we're good on just that. I don't need another album like that. I really like it for that reason, but I don't think we need another album like that. I'd prefer it to end off like how After Hours was, where there's a lot of just hard hitting tracks and it's just like banging. the entire time. But I mean, I would be really surprised to see him make a lot of music after that, honestly. Like he's had an insane run, but like you said, Ursel, like maybe he'll retire the Weeknd persona, and I could definitely see that as well. But he's a talented ass dude. I mean, we're sucking his dick a lot, but he deserves it.
Okay, rapid fire question right here. Least favorite song, I think we all agree, is I Heard You're Married.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's an affront
Easy.
to God.
Easy.
And just for, I think we kind of already touched over this, but recap, what is everyone's three favorite, like batch of favorite songs? I'd say Sacrifice, Gasoline, and I would say Gasoline, Take My Breath, and Sacrifice are my favorites. But from there, I do have to give shout outs to the other 7 that I added. And those are How Do I Make You Love Me, Here We Go Again, Is There Someone Else, and Don't Break My Heart. I think those are the 7 best songs on the album.
7 best songs.
Like the top half of the 12.
Yeah, I Sacrifice probably my favorite. God damn it, what's the I'm so hungry right now. I can't even think of what that fucking Lady Gaga sounding song is called.
How Do I Make You Love Me?
Yeah, How Do I Make You Love Me, and then Gasoline. Those are my top 3 for sure.
I would say my top 3 in this order at the moment are How Do I Make You Love Me, Sacrifice, and then Take My Breath. But if I were to shout out the other songs that I really like, Out of Time is probably number 4 for me. And then it's like probably Don't Break My Heart. And then actually Here We Go Again, despite the terrible feature. And then Less Than Zero. Those are my probably like top half favorite. And then my least favorite obviously is I Heard You're Married.
No hubcap.
And then probably like my second least favorite would be like maybe Starry Eyes, just because of how like forgettable it is to me. And Best Friends is also in that list.
Yeah, so now it is time for the grand finale, our final thoughts, our /review/rating, and where this fits in the Weeknd's album discography. So I'll go ahead and start off. So I'm gonna kind of go on for a second here, but yeah. So like I said, I just don't think this is as good as After Hours. I think this is definitely a come down from that. But I'll say the pros. I think when this album hits, it really, really hits hard. Especially that first half is really high energy and fantastic. I think there's still some good songs scattered throughout that. Like Here We Go Again, Is There Someone Else specifically, and Don't Break My Heart is good too. I do want to say Out of Time and Less Than Zero have grown. So that's probably like 9 songs that hit really, really well. I think, but then I think there's so outside those 9 songs, right? There's 16 songs total. I don't really care for the interludes. So, we're bringing it down to 12 songs. So 9 out of 12 songs, I think, hit pretty well. 7 of them, I think, are fantastic. 3 of them, I think, are questionable and bring the quality down. I think Starry Eyes definitely could have just been an Is There Someone Else outro. I think Best Friends has kind of a corny hook. And I think I Heard You're Married is the worst Weeknd song I've heard in the past 5 years, which is a very big negative. I also think another negative for me is that Every Angel Is Terrifying is a huge blue balls and kind of is an infuriating interlude, in my opinion. And then also the other negative I want to talk about is that I think the features are kind of pointless. And then finally, the last thing I want to say is I think, look, we know that The Weeknd makes good pop music, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's why we go to The Weeknd. I don't think we're all Weeknd fans because we love, I Feel It Coming. And I don't think that what I'm trying to say is this is not why we came into The Weeknd. I feel like most big diehard EXO fans really that's not what drew us in. I think really kind of the depth of his music, how dark he could get, but also balance it out with that positivity, like how he has that range and that scope to make a song like I Can't Feel My Face, but also a song like Escape from LA, that how he can make a song like that's so epic, like After Hours, or like, like, and I feel like, yeah, he does make, he really knocks it out of the park with how well he masters the sound, but it's also very limiting, is what I'm saying. It feels very isolating. It feels like that, like a disco, this really insane disco that's going on, that's kind of surrounded by nothing when you kind of expand it out from there. Um, and it feels like a very isolating listen. And I think that's like the best part of the album cover is the black around the old man. I think so. Like I said, so that's kind of like the weird trade-off. You have a really fantastic disco pop synthwave sound, but you're losing a lot of the hallmarks of like what makes The Weeknd a fantastic artist, in my opinion. And I think the songwriting does take a hit with stuff like I Heard You're Married and Best Friends. Like some of the lyrics are just kind of corny, honestly, in some of his songs. And I think he's limited by how far he looks back. He just keeps it to relationships. And I just listed a lot of negatives here, and that's what does bring my score down. But I do want to say when this album hits, it hits fantastically. The production is amazing. The sonics on this album are fucking amazing. It's an epic album. The first stretch of this album is fucking fantastic. Tracks 1 all the way up through 8, honestly, are fucking amazing, fantastic. Like if he kept the quality of the first 5 songs, honestly, half this album into the second half, this would have been in the 9s. And if he just cut like seriously, some of these could have cleaned up really fast if he took out the features, made Is There Someone Else that started as one track, that would have upped the score a few points, made Every Angel Is Terrifying an actual its own song. Just some of these fixes, I think, I think really odd decisions on his part for things like that. But all things considered, I think it's like a mid-tier Weeknd album. I think it's an interesting experiment, and I do like that it was conceptual, and I think he can do the concept thing more. I just don't think he does this concept the most justice with like the scope of like what the lyrics are about and what the sound is. I think he could have done a lot more with the concept. But I think what he does do is still pretty enjoyable and interesting. I think the radio station stuff is super cool. And how I would rank this album is the worst. Okay, so the worst, I'm going to go from worst to best. Worst is going to be, I'm going to actually pull up that list that I created for all of our album rankings from last time. So worst, I think, is My Dear Melancholy. That feels like a project that doesn't have that much of an identity of itself. It feels like he was really trying to figure out where to go from there. And it feels like a really awkward stopgap between Starboy and After Hours. It's 6 songs, and like I said, it just doesn't hold that much of an identity to me. The songs are great, but there's some specific really good highlights on that, but it's kind of a forgettable project in the midst of everything. And I'd probably say that's like somewhere between like a 6.5 and a 7 for me. Beauty Behind the Madness is kind of the really strange album for me because it's got some of his biggest hits and some of his best songs, but honestly some of his worst too, and it makes it a really inconsistent album. And I'd probably say that's next. I'd probably say that's like a 7. I think Starboy is definitely I would say Starboy is next from there. I think it has less misses than Beauty Behind the Madness, but I still think it's a little bit overdrawn out with it being 18 songs. And I think it doesn't flow that well as a full album, as cohesive as anything that comes after Starboy on this list. I think is what makes all these other albums fantastic. We'll get there. From there, I'll say Starboy is probably like a 7.5. I think it's a really good album with some great hits. From there, I'm gonna say it's gonna be Dawn FM. I think it's gonna fall into that 1, 2, 3, that 4th place spot for me. And like I said, all pretty much all the things I just said. And also, like, if you're a big Weeknd fan, you can obviously adapt to like how he's changing things. But I think for the average Weeknd listener, like if you want songs like Heartless or Often or Party Monster, it's like, you might really walk away from this album disappointed because there's nothing like that on here. And he's really abandoned that sound on this album. But all those things considered, I'm gonna give this album. Actually, let me run through my ranking, and then Kissland, I'm gonna give a 9. I think that's third. I think it's a really cohesive album and it aged like fine wine. And I think Kissland is honestly Dawn FM, but done better in my opinion. And then I think After Hours is just the culmination of everything the Weeknd's done up to this point. It was just a fantastic, all-encompassing project for him. Really, like I think did the best thing he could have done with the sound, with the 80s sound, which is go after it, but also make it his own, which I think is what he kind of lost on this project. I gave that obviously a 9.5. And then Trilogy, what can I say? It's one of the best projects ever created. It's a masterpiece. It ushered us into dark R&B. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a 10 out of 10. But I'd go, like I said, My Dear Melancholy, 6.5, Be Behind the Madness, 7, Starboy, 7.5, Kissland, 9, After Hours, 9.5, Trilogy, 10. And in the midst of all that, I'm going to give Dawn FM an 8 out of 10, flat 8.0 out of 10. I was originally sitting on 8.5, but now that I've kind of spoken out a lot of these issues that I have with it, I think it is an 8. I think some of this might get kind of smoothed out and it could go up to an 8.5, but I think some of these issues really stop it from what I would consider an amazing album. Like, I Heard You're Married is not a good song. And then some of the other strange decisions, like, pretty much what I already mentioned already. So 8.0 out of 10. That's my take. A bit of a come down from After Hours, but still a great album. I hope The Weeknd, I'm really excited to see what The Weeknd does next, as always, because he's honestly one of the most interesting, fascinating artists, not just right now, but of all time. So there you go. 8 out of 10 for me for Dawn FM. I know I kind of went on for a minute, but the floor is yours, guys. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. My ranking since our After Hours podcast episode has changed for not this album necessarily, but for the other albums in his discography. So I'll kind of just give my final thoughts. I think Dawn FM is a project that is very good. You just have to appreciate it. You have to listen to it in order all the way through, I think. And I think John can attest to that because me and him have both listened to it all the way through dozens of times between us both.
Same here, bro. What do you mean, John?
Well, John's the only one besides me that's been saying how many times he's listened to it.
I said I listened to it like 12, 13 times.
Okay, yeah, so 3 dozen listens
At
between
least.
all three of us at least. I think, like I was saying earlier, I think the first half of the album fucking is like a 9.5 or 10. The second half of the album just not tanks the score, but it really strips away from the magic and the good sound of the first half of the album, if that makes sense. I wish like the quality of songs was like kind of like, I feel like I would like the album more if the quality of songs was like sprinkled throughout the album instead of being so top heavy. I feel like the top heaviness kind of ruins the album to an extent. I don't know. There's just so many on the backside that just suck. Like I Heard You're Married so bad, and Every Angel Is Terrifying being such a blue balls moment just kind of like is jarring almost. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a great album, and I think definitely us all talking about it on here definitely kind of molded my score a little differently in my head. Because I was originally coming in kind of high on it, maybe just recency bias, most likely is what it was. But I think my score is pretty justified. I'll go through where I'd rank it. So starting from the bottom, I in his discography, I still have Be Behind the Madness at the bottom. I think that is just such a fucking stinker of an album. I like 2 songs off of that album, Acquainted and Angel, and that's about it. My Dear Melancholy, second worst. I mean, it is like more of a mixtape, not really like well, what is it? Is it an EP or?
Yeah, it's an EP.
It is an EP.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that kind of sets it off. That kind of handicaps it from the start. Next, I would probably put I'm gonna get fucking murdered for this, but I put Kissland next. I have really
Jeez.
lately fallen out of love. I have really, especially listening to it again. When I did that discography listen, I really have fallen out of love with Kissland. I don't know what it is about the album, but I don't have it on any of my playlists anymore. And it's the only Weeknd album I don't have any songs off of it on there anymore. I don't know if I oversaturated myself when I really got into it, but
Kissland machine broke.
the Kissland machine is broken, and I think the Weeknd still thinks the Kissland machine's broken, and I think that also deteriorates from it because he acts like it doesn't exist except for its anniversary. And then next I would put Don FM next. I think the experience of listening to the album outweighs the hearsay that's in the back half of the album. I think this album is the most complete storytelling experience he's ever put out, and probably the best production value he's ever put out on an album. Thanks to all, the Uncut Gems score person being one of the producers, definitely
Pointrix never.
Yeah, he put each song has tons of layers. You listen to it in like Dolby Atmos, it's fucking golden. It's the sound design in it is very good. It's just such a pleasing album to listen to. And with that, I would give this album an 8.5. I was coming in thinking like maybe 9 territory, but I think after talking about it, because honestly, as forgettable as the song is, I legitimately forgot Starry Eyes was on the album. And that song isn't great. So I think talking about it definitely helped me mold a more justified score, just because it's so front heavy. The front half, like I said, is just banging. It's just straight 10. But the second half just takes away so much. It kind of just like kneecaps it going through the album. And then I put Starboy, and then After Hours number 2, Trilogy at number 1. Like obviously it's gonna be number 1, but I feel like that's kind of like when I rank the Weeknd's albums, I just expect that people think that's his best. So like I would consider like
After Hours is his best album.
It's his best post trilogy album.
Mm-hmm.
I just like I saying trilogy's number 1 is just like kind of a cheat code because it's like like obviously it's the best one.
Over 30 songs.
Yeah,
and kind of like what I said in our After Hours review. I think After Hours is probably the album he's going to be remembered for.
I think so too. And I think that's what I still like when I think of the Weeknd, I don't think of like John's Background Weekend or like the Old Man Weekend. I think of the After Hours album cover with the bloody nose.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Red suit.
Yeah,
After Hours was a fucking lightning in a bottle moment, dude.
Mm-hmm. I think if there was any album that had a chance to ever overthrow trilogy, it would be After Hours, and I think
I agree.
Most
100%.
of us can agree on that. Because After
and who knows, maybe one day with time it might.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, definitely listening to his older songs after listening to the production value of the past 2 albums has definitely left kind of a sour taste in my mouth, because I mean obviously the production value is not nearly as high on trilogy, Kissland and all that stuff, but like it's recency bias definitely creeps in on my album ranking. That's like I mean that's why my ranking is the way it is, I guess. So my final score, I give Don FM an 8.5. I think it fits well into his catalog, and I think it is interesting seeing him move into more of a storytelling album rather than a just like banger after banger album, I guess. Because even though the songs on the back half are kind of bad, the only one that really doesn't fit into the story is I Heard You're Married. I don't know why the fuck that song is even in here. But I think it's the most complete album, but complete doesn't always mean great.
Yeah, but also like seriously, Abel, it's time to leave the 80s electronic fucking sound behind. It's time.
We'll see if he does with the next project.
Yeah.
We'll see. Andrew, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to put out?
No, that was it. You can give your final thoughts.
All righty. Well, I actually, you guys are going to be surprised by this, but
no, I'm not.
no, this conversation did change my thoughts on the album, actually. And just like some listens this week too. not just the first weekend of listening.
That was the most shit
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
shit lord fucking thing ever. Weekend.
But no, I mean, I
Or
am
should
in
I
love
say
with
the
this album.
weekend?
The Weeknd. No, I mean, I am in love with this album. Like, there might be a couple of songs that don't fit perfectly. Like I Heard You're Married, and I think even Best Friends. But it's one of the most coherent projects that The Weeknd has put out, no doubt. And I like hearing a more positive sounding Weeknd, and I like the themes of acceptance, even if and this is actually what's knocking it down a little bit for me. Ursula, you're right. It is very heavily focused on relationships with that theme of acceptance, which is a little dry, slightly.
Mhm.
But I do love the storytelling in it. The production is ridiculously good. Like After Hours was like Abel's crazy life, and then this is like his journey to the afterlife. But like, yeah, he's only accepting and coming at peace with himself with like relationships, which is like, it's not his entire life, obviously. I think Jim Carrey did a phenomenal job. I love the radio theme, and that it is like an hour-long radio special. It's really cool to me. I don't think any other artist is going to ever do that or recreate it. And if they do, then they're definitely just copying. I don't think it has quite as many single tracks that I would pick out and listen to as like After Hours or Starboy or even Beauty Behind the Madness, I think. But as an entire project, it's one of my favorite to listen to. Like there's not a lot of, besides Kissland, there's really no Weeknd album that I would go and listen to front to back whenever I want to hear a song from it. But I've already listened to this thing like 16, like close to 20 times probably. Honestly, I had it on repeat pretty much this entire week while I was working, carrying me through this COVID during my work week. Well, let me go through my ranking before I give it the score. My ranking's actually super similar to yours, Ursel. My Dear Melancholy is definitely at the bottom. I'd give it a 7. There's a couple of banging tracks like Wasted Times and Call Out My Name.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's like, it's kind of okay. And it doesn't really like, I don't know, an entire project about that stupid hoe, Selena Gomez. Sorry to anyone who likes Selena
Just
Gomez.
a side
but I
note,
hate
John this past week went on a whole rant about how much he fucking hated Selena Gomez. So
yeah, I'm not gonna get into it because that'll take too long. But yeah, I hate Selena, and a whole project dedicated to her, not the best, I don't think. And that might not have been exactly what it was, but that's what it felt like. And it was kind of, I mean, it's the lowest on my list for sure. Beauty Behind the Madness is second to the bottom. I would give it an 8 though. I really do like Beauty Behind the Madness, and I have a lot of like fond memories with it. And I think mostly it's because it's the album that came out when Casey and I, my wife and I, first started dating. So I think like that's actually why I love it the way I do, because when it really comes down to it, it's maybe half the songs are that good and half the songs are like pretty bad actually. Then it would go Starboy. Starboy would be next in my list from the bottom, but I do love Starboy. I just think there's a lot of misses on the album and a lot of tracks that I don't come back to, and that I do skip, even though I have every song added technically. I would still give Starboy an 8 as well, along with Beauty Behind the Madness. I think they're both 8s in their own regard. I think Starboy is a little too long. I think Beauty Behind the Madness is fine on the length, but they both have an equal amount of bad songs, I feel like, or songs that I don't come back to specifically. Right in the middle is After Hours. Or no, sorry, not After Hours, sorry. Dawn FM is actually in the middle for me, because I actually switched this during our conversation.
No way.
Yeah. this conversation and really the biggest thing for me was how bad I Heard You're Married really is in my eyes. And then also the fact that this purgatory theme was completely focused on relationships, which we've heard lots of songs from The Weeknd on relationships. And I do think, you know, without the recency bias, even though there is some recency bias with this, I think with how many times I've listened to it, yes, he does need to find a new sound. But I love the storytelling. The first half of the album is fucking the best. It's like the best first half to any Weeknd album, I think.
I could get behind that.
But it really falls off after that. It's mid after that. But After Hours is directly in the middle. I'll wait on my score.
You mean Dawn FM?
God damn it. Thank you for correcting me. Dawn FM directly in the middle. And After Hours is next. After Hours is amazing. I didn't give it its due in our first episode that we talked about it, honestly.
Damn.
I know I would if I could officially change my score, I would, and I will. It's our podcast. Fuck it. I'm doing it. It's a 9. It's a 9 for me. I don't think it's perfect. And I think it, in my opinion, kind of suffers the same thing that Starboy does, where like it doesn't have like one identity, but it doesn't really need it either. I mean,
After Hours.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of it, and I love the aesthetic that The Weeknd takes with all the videos too. And like you guys said, I think like that red suit, The Weeknd, Abel, is going to be like one of the most iconic looks for him. And I think that sound from After Hours is amazing too. And I come back to a lot of singles from it still to this day, more than Starboy even at this point. And I would have given Starboy higher points than After Hours at one point. But yes, After Hours would be third for me from the top. Kissland is next. I fucking love Kissland. I can't praise it enough.
Amazing.
It's so good. I love how cohesive it is. I think it's just as cohesive as Dawn FM without the storytelling. But which
is a big achievement, I feel like.
Yeah, for 2013 too. But the sound is just amazing. I love the sound of it. I would give Kissland a 9.5. And then Trilogy is a 10. There are no stinkers. Maybe one stinker out of 30 plus songs. And
what is it? I want to know what you think that stinker is.
Trilogy has the other
Glass Table Girls.
Glass Table. That's not even a second. That's one.
It's a second half. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Trilogy has the other Weeknd song that has a feature that I think just fucking misses, and it's Same Old Song.
I actually like Same Old Song a lot.
I know you were about to say The Zone. I was about to be like, you motherfucker, you can't say The Zone is a miss.
Same Old Song would be an all-timer if Juicy J didn't come in at the end. He fucking sucks. And it's so pointless. It's so fucking
The Weeknd getting girls' panties wet.
So stupid. Fucking Juicy J.
But yeah, to go back to Dawn FM for a moment. Dawn FM is the mid for me, the middle tier. But the middle tier for The Weeknd is really damn good still. My final score, so it's My Dear Melancholy 7, Beauty Behind the Madness 8, Starboy 8, but ahead of Beauty Behind the Madness. Dawn FM 8.5. And then After Hours 9, Kissland 9.5, and Trilogy 10.
I feel like a fucker because you guys walked into this whole thing being like, this is a top tier album.
It's middle of the road.
Yeah. Hey, we didn't say if it was top tier for The Weeknd or for artists in general.
Yeah, it's pretty top tier.
Yeah,
it'll probably end up being album of the year for me, but it's very early.
It just speaks to The Weeknd's discography that like
2 weeks,
an 8 range album is considered potentially disappointing a little,
right,
or a bit of a come down.
I mean, The Weeknd is like the greatest artist of our generation easily. He is the Prince or like the Michael Jackson of our time. And he's just
So just for reference, we've had to update our After Hours score since John gave it a 9. The average score for After Hours is now a 9.3. So it only went up from 9.2 to 9.3. But Dawn FM score is 8.3. So,
An entire point behind.
I think that's fair.
but
I think
think
that
that's
is
fair.
fair. Yeah.
and like, look, like this, like reiterate, just because someone says Dawn FM is not as good as After Hours, it's not saying that After Dawn FM sucks. It's just that After Hours is like, bro, that was the first pandemic classic. That album is a classic. And
Yeah,
it's
I know
like
that
the
one. Instant classic.
The alpha
yeah that yeah,
variant.
yeah
of
that yeah
classic.
like yeah After Hours was a lightning in a bottle moment. Seriously. So it is kind of unrealistic expectations, I think, to set that his next album is going to be even better. But I'm excited to see where he goes from here. And Dawn FM, ControllerCast said it. It's still a great project. Just a bit of a come down and a middle tier Weeknd album. That is all from us. I hope you guys enjoyed this very lengthy discussion on Dawn FM. First potential album of the year contender, but we'll see what the rest of this year has to bring. Thank you everyone for listening. We will be back next week with Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, the very first one.
Let's go.
And we will be having, I believe, still a special guest.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll be having a special guest, and we'll be back next week with that episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it, especially if you're a Weeknd fan. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. And that is Ursula signing off.
Thank you guys for listening. This is John signing off. Give Dawn FM a listen and the rest of his discography if you haven't. But this is John signing off.
Andrew signing off. Kiss Line Machine still broke.